Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 26th venue of the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals. Here today, we prepare for our second timed race of the season as we are here at Bathurst for the 2 hours of Bathurst, the Motorsports Drop 2 hours. I'm Seth Cole, being joined by two guys that know a little bit about road course racing, Scott Rankin and Anthony McCurry. Scott, we're going to start with you because obviously here tonight, we're in your backyard.
Yeah, man, welcome to my home. This is my hunting ground. You wanted to go stomping around a section of the country that I'm extremely well versed in? Well, you've come to the right venue. Bathurst! This is going to be the weirdest looking street course you guys have ever seen, but no lie, this is a street course. If you show up to Bathurst, the town of Bathurst, you can literally go for a drive around Mount Panorama. The circuit, it's beautiful, it's pristine, it's lovely. Great place to go motor racing, actually. Not in these cars. Yeah, that's about all I have to say on the matter.
Anthony, obviously the first time this season that FTF is having a opportunity for split drivers here, two drivers with the opportunity of driving one race car during the course of this 2 hours, and we know there's a competition caution coming up here as well, 45 minutes into this session. There's no fast repairs for these guys, and we've been watching them here in these very tight corners. So what is the strategy if you're coming to a time race like this, especially for the first stint?
Don't be a hero in turn one. It's a standing start first and foremost for these guys, so it's going to be a little bit different trying to get into turn one. But once you get down there, don't try to win the race in turn one. It's a 2-hour race. You have plenty of time to make moves. This is a thin track. It kind of reminds me of like Macau in some certain areas where it kind of clutches in on you, especially going down the hill, but you can make passes here going down the straights, especially on the way down Conrad. So if you want to...
Sorry, can you just say that again? What was the straight called?
Sorry, Conrad.
Conrad, not Conrad. Conrad. The straight doesn't have a name.
I'll get it right eventually. I'll get it right. Going downhill, you have several braking zones that you can pile into, but do not try to win the race on the first lap. Also, driver swaps, something that is kind of well versed in endurance racing all over the world. You see it in GTs, prototypes, what have you. These cars a little bit more difficult to do it, but if they can do it at that competition full course yellow, then that would be the best time. You're not under pressure. You don't have to have an extra stop time to try and make that changeover. So if you can do it under that full course yellow, then I absolutely would try to do that. It'll mean that your second driver goes out for longer, but some of these teams rather might have already planned that out into their strategy to have that second driver go much further distance than the first driver. And it'll be 15 minutes really.
And don't worry about messing up on the name, because with the limited knowledge I have of this track, I would have just called it that straight away and just called it a day, because all these corners here are completely confusing to me. That's why we got Scott here, because he knows all of them. But one thing I want to bring up here, Scott, is, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we covered the Indianapolis road course race, was just how many road courses they had on the schedule here. I mean, about maybe a quarter of the races that they have gone to here during the course of this regular season have been at the winding road courses. You got tracks like Spa, Road Atlanta. They were at the speedway and road course configuration of Monza a couple of months ago. Those type of tracks, you don't normally think of a full course yellow coming out, but with the fact that you've got these tight corners and you've got walls on either side, is there the possibility we could see a full course yellow in tonight's event?
Yes, definitely. Look, there have been multiple circumstances whereby the track here has actually been blocked in real life, and during the actual Bathurst 12-hour this year. I mean, if anyone here actually participated in that race itself, that race actually had track blockages in most of the splits that actually ran that race. It is so difficult. Look at the field size that we've got here tonight. We've got 36 cars. So many cars getting around the track. It could happen at any stage throughout the race. It's always a possibility, so keep your head down, and anything can happen at Bathurst. And it often does, actually.
36 cars, only 24 of them electing to take time, so 12 drivers going to be starting towards the rear of the field. Parker White and Brandon Hawken going to be the ones to lead us to green as zeros on the clock. It's a standing start here to get us underway in the 2 hours of Bathurst, and there it is. Green flag's out, and off they head.
Wow, what a difficult prospect trying to get these cars off the line. Where else do you ever see somebody have to get an Xfinity car away from a standing start like this? That is so difficult.
Especially when some of the drivers had to start on the penultimate turn. There was a lot of drivers that took the Murray's Corner as one of the places that they had to start the race in, but they've all gotten through, and now they're going up mountain. So far right now, Parker White with the clear lead. Right behind him is Hawken, but everyone about third on back is about single filed out, and then you've got some battling going on, and there's a spinner around, and the 199 is around.
That just looks like a car going way too deep into the braking zone. It just mixed his braking zone on the first lap. That's all it is.
Ryan Shelton, also the 6, actually the 85 on our screens, but the 6 on our telemetry. Spencer Ray had an issue over in that corner as well. And again, I mean, we're less than a minute into this thing. The last thing you want to do is tear up the race car because there's no fast repair to fall back on. And if these guys have a second driver on standby, if you got that thing totaled before we get to the driver swap opportunity, that driver showed up for nothing.
Yeah, you don't have a race car to fight with, so it always being the second driver is the most difficult part. It's also kind of the most, a little bit of the most, as I would call it, kind of on edge part. You're anxious. You want to be able to do something about it, but you're really just relying on your first driver in order to get the car around in one piece so you can actually have a shot at this race. And it's a massive team effort when you have multiple drivers. If one driver does poorly, then the second or third driver has to kind of mess up or deal with the fallout of all of it. But so far, everyone, no one wrecked out yet as we are almost done with lap 1.
Complete this first lap here, and Parker White, let's actually have Scott take us for a lap around this racetrack, courtesy of the onboard with our race leader, Parker White.
Yeah, it's such a tricky track. They're coming down here. This is Murray's Corner, the final corner. We'll get back and we'll cover some of the specifics about it at the end. Cross the start-finish line. Here we go, all the way down to Hell Corner, aptly named. First lap, always hell to pay down here. Get it turned in, dodge that curb. There's a little bit of banking there that'll try and help you get the car turned in. Now you're on the mountain straight. You actually want to take this crest up here under the Petters Bridge on the right-hand side of the road. There's actually slightly less fall off and pickup, so you gain a small amount of time. It's not much, but it is enough when you go up there. This is Griffin's Bend. This is probably a difficult yet unassuming corner at the same time. And there's multiple stops around the track whereby it's going to be difficult at some point throughout the lap. The cutting, so difficult. Uphill, heavily uphill. Trying to get the car woed up. It does not want to woe up. And turn it in. All the way up and around the curves up here. This is Quarry Corner into Suleiman Park. Up here, you want to crest the corner, flow all the way out next to the wall on the right-hand side, turn it in. Here's the grate. So many cars have died over the years right at that corner. Take the curbing on the right, crest the hill, turn it back in. Now we're coming to the most difficult portion of the track. This is Brock Skyline. You crest the hill, and all of a sudden you drop 100 feet away, all the way down to the dipper, the left-hander right here. That is an incredibly difficult corner to take, and F1 cars actually can't take the left-hand side of the road there. This is Forest Elbow, the braking zone here. There's bumps, there's crests, there's falls, all the way down. You are just working to try and get the car to pull up, and sometimes you just don't even try that. You just pray at the back end of your life. Take a breath. It's been a long ride up and across the top of the mountain. Now you're on Conrad Straight, all the way up to about 300 kilometers an hour, nearly 200 miles an hour if you are an American. Turn it in here at the Chase. Fastest corner in Australian motorsport. Woe the car all the way up. Turn it in. Just dodge the curb on the left-hand side. You can actually see Parker just caught it. There's a flat spot in the curb right there. It's perfect. Turn it across the right. The road falls away from you. Down to Murray's Corner again. This looks so easy to take. It's just a natural left-hander, right? No, the road tilts away to the right. You've got to pull the car up, dodge the curb on the inside, get back on the gas, and that is about 2 minutes and 11 seconds of a lap around Bathurst.
And that's courtesy of our current race leader, the pole sitter, Parker White, in that 195 Toyota Supra. Brandon Hawken right
so
behind
cool
him.
And calm. Like, I'm watching that.
He really did.
And there's like so little wheel work. I was doing so many laps worth of practice, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my god, I'm turning the car in too aggressively. Oh, I'm turning it back in too aggressively over here. I'm on the power, the rear end set. No, it's cool. Everything's
Got
working.
driver in trouble. Chris Wetz, I believe, in the 71 has gone around, and ooh, taking a pretty hard lick. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that was that left-hander, that final left-hander you were saying.
Murray's
It
corner.
looks pretty natural. Yeah, Murray's corner. And he ran into a problem there. Also saw, as we were taking that lap around there with the race leader, Dalton Cowden in the 117 had an issue there back on the second lap. So he has fallen all the way back to the 30th position. And we got a car on pit road. That's the one of Dylan Smith out of Scooter Earnhardt. Also had Spencer Ray on pit lane the lap before. And that's Robert Dorman in the 46 that is currently sitting on pit lane right now.
Yeah, I'm just having a quick look at Dylan Smith's car. There honestly seems to be nothing wrong. I think they're just, to be perfectly honest, I can't tell you what they're doing in pit lane. I think it's planned. I think they've got a reason for coming down, but it definitely didn't look like it.
Either way, they're back out on track, miles behind the race leader as they continue to go up the mountain, as well they're going down the mountain now. Middle of the pack, will make that middle of the top 10 rather. You've got a bunch of cars about third on to sixth position, that being held by Gilliland, Stewart, Bose, and Helton, as they all run pretty close together on the way down the Conrad Straight, as I'll get it right.
Conrad. You know the part in the car, the Conrad. The straight is named after the part of the car because cars are very likely to throw a Conrad whilst traversing the straight. It used to be a lot longer.
See, there was a layup, and I missed the layup. But as they continue to battle, this is about the closest that we're seeing in the top 10 right now. Is actually, it looks like Gilliland went out wide, and that's going to give the position to Stewart. Still very early on in the race, nothing really to talk about much for finishing positions right now, but this doesn't stop Bose from having to look down to the inside of the racetrack as they're going to drag race up the mountain.
Had the 62 hard on the brakes, almost running to the back of Nate Stewart there as he was trying to, I think, cross him over going into turn one. And you look here at this four of Nate Stewart, there's a number of drivers in the field that we were observing, and it's so cool that they're kind of getting into the theme of this racetrack, running those V8 supercar liveries on their machines. Nate Stewart, one of them there in that four car.
Yeah, give me a look and I can actually tell you. I'm not sure Nate Stewart's actually got a V8 supercar styled scheme. I don't know what you're looking at. I don't remember that one. That one's completely unfamiliar. If it is, I'm going to need some direction here. If you guys know more about this than I do.
I'm assuming it's probably not based off of a V8 supercar, a specific one, but probably just trying to take the sponsorship and make it V8 supercar-esque with his car.
All right, yeah,
that's what I'm assuming is going on there.
Again, another layup set up, another layup missed completely.
It's okay, the game's not on the line yet. We still got a couple quarters to play.
Very, very early on in this match, and yeah, it's a nice scheme, and yeah, even getting into the schemes, there's a big lockup from Stewart. Even getting into the overall feel of the race, having a style, it does look more or less like the newer V8 supercar seasons at circa the era of 2020 and forward, as it looks nice. I actually prefer that these cars have schemes like this. It just, the way that it flows on the car, it fits naturally on the car. Having the numbers pushed forward, having the numbers on the back of or the middle of the car, I don't know, they never really sat nice for me. I do like the way that they are on the Ford machine of Nate Stewart, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, a bit of a fact about Nate Stewart is he's actually running the entirety of the race solo, as I don't think he's got a team name unless his team is Nate Stewart. Then I would be surprised if he is, but I think that Nate is one of the few drivers in the field trying to pull this off as a solo race.
Yeah, there's a number of drivers in the field that just kind of have their teams named after themselves, that, you know, they had the option that they could have two drivers take part in the event in one race car, but they also had the option, if they wanted to be able to drive the entire 2 hours by themselves. Another driver that would fit that bill is the sixth place driver Logan Helton back there in the 063, a name that's actually pretty familiar to us when we used to cover the Soda Guys Cup Series as well as the Rapid Fire Pizza National Series. He actually was in both of those series, so very familiar name here at Bathurst, trying to run down Adam Gilliland in the 62. Now, this is an interesting thing here as well, because we were able to see during practice Now, obviously, the drivers that were going to be starting out for their respective teams, the 62 out of Speed Incorporated, trying to keep themselves atop the owner's standings. They've had several different drivers in that machine during the course of the season. Now, Adam Gilliland is doing the driving duties here tonight, at least to start with. Coming into this race, we were told that it was going to be Blake Reynolds and Brian Mercurio, a couple of former winners, that were going to be splitting time in that machine. So not certain which of those two drivers is going to be the second driver here in the 62, with Adam Gilliland getting the primary driving duty to start this thing.
Not sure. We'll have to find out as the race continues on. I haven't been able to find... I wanted to go back and see if Nate Stewart's car was based off of a V8 Supercar. I've not been able to find one, but it is, however, based off of the stylized, the way they're styled nowadays.
So he has, okay. Yeah, because I was looking at the livery, there's not a lot of yellow and black supercars that come to mind in V8 Supercars history. So, yeah, that was, okay. But no, the styling's fantastic. I'm trying to remember, I was looking through the field earlier on, there was a Kmart car. Now, a lot of you guys...
199, we're looking at him right now, Ryan.
Oh, okay. Well, look at that. How's that for a segue? So, this car is... Everyone on the other side of the pond is going to be sitting there going, oh, this is just a Kmart car. This is an American Kmart car. No, Australia actually has their own branch, own stylings of the Kmart branding. So, this is based off of that. The car, I believe it was Greg Murphy, and I'm pretty sure it was Rick Kelly, who's very recently just announced his retirement from V8 Supercars series as a whole. He's actually I'm trying to think of three things at once. That's why I'm messing up a little bit here. So this livery is actually based off of Greg Murphy's car from, I believe it was 2003. It was either 2003, 2005, and something that is known as the Lap of the Gods. And the reason it's known as the Lap of the Gods is because this lap completely and utterly eclipsed any other similarly styled and paced lap in qualifying for the Bathurst 1000 of that year in the V8 Supercars. And the scheme is pretty much bang on for that. The M&M's obviously is very different. That's an American-styled portion of the livery, but you know, it's pretty close.
Got Dalton Cowden off the course there, going into Hell Corner. We saw moments ago as well the 115 having a problem with Patrick Fogel off of Murray's corner. That corner in particular has claimed a couple of drivers so far early on in this one, and Brandon Hawken, about a lap and a half ago, has gone to the point. Brandon Hawken, of course, winning 2 of the 3 legs of the Mark Zabetka birthday bash during the Tsukuba Nationals and winning the overall race weekend there. So we know he's able to get it done when it comes to the left and right hand corners, and proving it here is he's pulling away from Parker White.
Indeed he is. He's showing himself pretty well in the first part of this race. For all of those, and I'm going to touch on the Lap of the Gods thing info for one thing. For anybody who is wondering what that lap time was, it was a 206.8 that was run.
That's in a V8 supercar.
It was a V8 supercar, yeah. These cars have straightaway speeds over the V8 supercars. They don't turn as well. Much heavier than the V8 supercars are, and they also have less downforce. But still, blazing lap when you consider that the fastest laps that we've seen here are 2:10s, and those are run during qualifying. Yeah, knowing how to get around this track in the early stages, we're seeing that some of these drivers that we've known do well at these type of tracks do very well, and that's a good thing because given the fact that it's a long race, I think it's going to be the longest race, well, at least the longest confirmed race on the schedule, because we don't do many timed races at all. The longest race that is going to be on the schedule as far as a distance goes. So setting a pace early is going to be good for your overall pace, especially if you have a driver that gets in the second half of the race that might not be as good. That's another thing that kind of piles into the whole driver swap versus running it by yourself. If you run it by yourself, then you know what your pace will be throughout the entire race. You will know what the pace of your secondary driver will be, but you don't really know how that's going to translate over into the full-length race because a lot of factors go into it. You really just have to kind of balance it out between what your fastest lap that you can do is versus the fastest lap your co-driver can do is, and then try to base your race delta on that. And some of these drivers, they've worked a lot of math to figure that out, and So I guess that leads to a question. What do you consider to be the better option? Do you consider the one driver or the two drivers to be a better option for this kind of race? Because obviously the one driver will get much more tired at the end of the race.
Okay, so there's a couple factors that play into that, and a couple of very, very important factors at that as well. With the way that this race is sort of contested, and what I know of the circuit, Bathurst tends to be the most challenging track that you are ever likely to come across, ever. The Nürburgring Nordschleife is about the only other track that comes similar, and if you were to run maybe an endurance race at somewhere like Detroit Belle-Isle, those are the only courses that I would consider in the same ballpark. And the reason that I say that is the physical demands on the driver across the top of the mountain are unlike those you feel anywhere else. There's a reason it's a street circuit, because the top of the mountain is, by all stretch of the imaginations, a street circuit, and it is for most people. So, look, both work. Both strategies do work. For 2 hours, normally I'd do 2 hours on my own. That would be my crack and the way that I would approach things. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, so long as you've got a driver that you're confident in their abilities and you're comfortable running with them, you do you, fam. You do whatever makes you happy.
Of course, again, as we mentioned, there is going to be a competition caution that comes out 45 minutes into this, so around with about an hour and 15 minutes remaining on our timer there up on the top left. So that's something that these drivers will be racing towards to be able to then kind of set themselves up for the remainder of this race. Now, if we end up having a caution come out, a full course yellow come out, within, I think they said the 30 minutes into a race mark, that would actually count as the competition caution. So it all really depends here on what takes place before we get to that 1 hour and 15 minute mark. And I'm assuming that was a reaction to Nate Stewart, who we saw just get his right sides off the course a bit, and Logan Helton taking advantage.
No, I was having a look at the 046 out of the guest consulting car. It is, I was wondering, I saw him come out of Forest Hill, but he just seems so much slower than everybody else around him, and it's because he's completely missing the nose off of that car. So I would say he's come a grief somewhere at the top of the mountain, and he's just going to continue on. You can't gain anything back by coming down pit road. You're just going to lose a whole bunch of time. So look, I mean, I would say that he's basically just like, I'm going to drive it until it blows.
Yeah, he's definitely...
Here in 10th place. Sorry to cut you off. I was just going to mention Rudy Valentine. You know, if you talk about drivers that have won at kind of interesting road courses this season, you got Rudy Valentine there in the 18 who won back at Monza, and he's splitting time here in this race with another guy that we've seen run up towards the front week after week here on Saturday nights, and that's Matthew Zwack. So obviously Zwack will be taking over the driving duties for the second half.
And he will undoubtedly also have some fast pace in this machine as well. Both of them have shown pretty good pace over the entirety of the season, and that's a dynamic duo when you get that teamed up. Right now running in the 10th position. The only driver that's close to him right now, I believe, would be the 45 of Ethan Porter. So no immediate danger. He's a little bit down the way from his closest guy in front of him, which would be Isaac Johnson, and then back from Carter to the next car would be Aaron Smith, and that is, it's about a straightaways distance, a front straightaways distance back between them.
Big shout out to Rudy Valentine, big Brian Hicks fan. Brian Hicks Toyota. So yeah, that's cool.
It's a nice scheme.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's really, really pretty. That car is actually very similar to the car that Marcus Ambrose actually won his championships in. He drove a blue and yellow Pertec, which is a tools company, car to the championship. I want to say about the year 2003, 2004.
Reminds me of the old Irwin cars that ran. I don't know if
tools. Yeah, similar to those
as well. Yep.
Yeah. A very nice scheme. It's kind of, I don't know why, but when I saw it, I thought it was kind of reminiscent of when I first glanced at it during practice, I thought it was a scheme that was akin to like some of the default schemes you get in some racing games where it's like, yeah, here you go, you get this car and you get this nice scheme. But it's actually a real life scheme, and it's beautiful. Like it pops. But right now, there's a big battle between him and Quarter going down the hill.
That would be for the 10th position, and just behind them, looking at the battling between Aaron Smith II and Ryan Shelton. I mean, Aaron Smith II, since the drop of the green flag, he's picked up 12 spots from 24th now up to P12. So he's a man on a mission. He's been picking them up and putting them down.
Almost ran right in the back. He's got a run going down, trying to get around. And I think that was a give me. I don't think that there was too much gamesmanship on the part of Aaron Smith, and Shelton just kind of blew on by. Shelton's carrying a lot of speed down here. I don't know if he can whoa it up. I don't know how he made the chase.
Well, I was just looking at Valentine. I mean, Valentine was a little bit sketchy coming into Forest Elbow as well. There's a car backwards in and around the dipper in 25th place car. The Goblins team, driven by Dalton Cowden, is backwards in the dipper. This is probably the hardest section of the track to get a car turned back around again, because it's blind. You are literally relying on your spotter to say you can go now, stop, go, because it is so blind. The guys that are coming down the hill cannot see you at all, and you're buried off on a very narrow section of the track. So he's done a phenomenal job to get that car back and out of there, and I kind of want to go back and watch how he ended up that way.
Ethan Corder in that 45 as he's trying to catch up to Rudy Valentine. Obviously, he is splitting time in this race with Lucas Palesso. We're used to seeing Palesso in that 45 week after week. And one thing we haven't talked about that's kind of the elephant we need to address in the room is the fact that, including tonight, there's only 2 more races left in the regular season before we put that playoff grid together. Lucas Palesso is actually up there with a chance of pointing his way in, and I had to wonder coming into this race with the opportunity to be able to split time between 2 drivers, how many drivers that were either just on the cusp of inside the playoff grid or just outside the window looking in might have gone to some of the Cup drivers and said, hey, I know you're not running for points, but can you be my co-driver, get me up there in good track position, either for the first or second half of this race, help me gain those max points, and then I can kind of see where my situation is at when we get to Darlington next week.
Well, and the other side of that coin is, remember what we were talking about in terms of strategy earlier on as well. We've got that competition caution coming. These drivers know about that, right? So if you grab yourself a strong driver, you slap him in the car, and then you pit and swap him at that pit stop, the field gets condensed again. All you've got is track position at that restart. You're going to slide backwards, and fighting traffic as well as the car across the top of the mountain on fresh tires is not a really smart idea. So I think for guys that are in that sort of playoff department that have opted to grab a Cup Series driver and bring them in, they will have the Cup Series driver run as long as they possibly can, probably targeting about the hour and 15 mark before they jump in the car.
Well, it would make sense too, because as we saw in the drivers' rules, that you have to have that first driver, or at least have a driver in there for 30 minutes. So that would be within the span of the 45 minutes before the competition caution comes out.
That would be a fantastic strategy, because you wouldn't have the stress of being able to, or having to come down and do a change under green, even though doing changes under green is routine throughout all endurance racing. When you're in a situation like this, especially so close to the end of a season, like you said, some of these drivers might have tried to pair up with other drivers that they know that they're fast. If you're trying to make it on and off a pit road efficiently, then if you have to have a slow stop regardless, then you might as well just come down and get it done in that way that you don't have to do it again. I'm not sure if these guys can make it all the way to 2 hours on a single stop. It might be a little bit ambitious.
Well, maybe. It'd be close. That's certainly for sure. Heads up, Victor Valley has gotten a black flag.
He has. Yes, indeed.
Admins have awarded him a penalty for an unsafe pass. So I'd say, well, the sounds of things, he's punted someone into the fence.
And so that is going to have him sitting on pit road for a little bit of time. As we saw also Ryan Pandicio having a problem there out of Murray's corner. We actually do have a couple of drivers that are out of the race as well. Chris Wetz is parked the 71. Precision Racing's Bo Bashir, he is out of the race. And also the one of Scooter Earnhardt with Dylan Smith has brought it to the garage area. Robert Dorman still sits on pit road. He's been sitting on pit road almost since the drop of the green flag. Still sitting there and currently 11 laps down. As Brandon Hawkins about to deal with some traffic. That's Keith Sherman in the 15 just up ahead of him.
Yeah, I was actually keeping an eye on Dorman a little bit earlier in the race. He's actually had a blown engine, so he'll be getting back out there in about half an hour's time once that engine's been fixed itself all the way back up. So
Yeah, it looks like I don't think he did, but it looks like it almost looked like he downshifted going into the chase. I don't think that was what happened.
Two cars flew out of Forest Elbow, I think.
Yeah, I think I think it just blew up on him, but that's unfortunate for him. And that was at the fastest part of the track too. And I've noticed a lot of these drivers, you have to run the setup kind of on the limit when you're going down there in order to get all 4 of these gears to actually work properly around the track. Other cars have the benefit of 5 or 6 gears. These cars are limited to 4, so the 4th gear is extremely short. And going downhill, especially heading into the final part of the sector of the track, running the limiter lap after lap might do more damage, especially since I think this is an open setup league, if I'm not mistaken.
No, this is fixed.
No fixed setup. So, given that, it's interesting that it happened to one and not all, but maybe some other damage might have been occurred.
Well, I'm wondering whether or not, because there was a lot of conjecture that that might have been related to the Victor Valley penalty.
It could have been, yeah. Maybe he
if
stopped, and maybe he stopped intentionally and just teleported.
Saw Kyle Lawrence Short getting out of the way of this battle for the 5th position between Adam Gilliland and Nate Stewart. Right now, Short is the 2nd car 1 lap down. Keith Sherman, that we just saw go a lap down moments ago, is the 1st car 1 lap down. 26 drivers on the lead lap at this point in time. We also saw Ryan Araki had a bit of an issue there, getting almost into the tire barriers. I couldn't recognize what corner that was, but he's gotten it recently refired and continues on, currently running with that 0-2 in the 21st position currently. And the drivers coming into this race that have a shot of making it into the playoffs, 3 drivers we know are confirmed locked in through wins. That would be Jake Poulin, Brett Pancari. They, of course, won 2 of the Super Speedway races this season, and we saw Jonathan Oates, the current points leader, go to victory lane as well. They are all locked into the playoffs through those victories. Nathan Rabideau, Andrew Schwartz, Sean Butler, Nate Stewart, Matthew Zwack, those drivers look like they are going to lock themselves in through points. The guys right now that are kind of on the bubble spots trying to make sure that they solidify themselves the final playoff positions include Lucas Palesel, Gary Waterworth, Tristan Hagenstein, Cosmonish Inoshu, and Ryan Araki, who we just saw there moments ago. Other drivers that are just barely in the conversation include Justin Malello, Ethan Corder, Evan Rice, and I believe that Malello is going to be the secondary driver of that 0-2 of Ryan Araki here at some point.
Continue to run. And the cut line is, like you said, the cut line is always impending, or always signals impending doom for drivers who are outside of it. But tonight, like you said, there's a lot of drivers that are gunning for it. But right now, most of them that I've seen are not close enough to their competitors in order to do it. I'll use Naraki as an example. 21st position. He's running in 21st, and that's not exactly fantastic if you're trying to get into the there's someone behind him.
Yeah, was that Ryan Pendicio?
No, Pandicio's also gone off there, but that was somebody else.
Adam Kodal, I think.
Yeah, it's Kodal. So Kodal goes off.
It's a lap machine. Lap machine, Kyle Lawrence
Dustin Dawes is the car.
Yeah.
Lap car there.
So we have 2 cars go off in the same spot, and I want to bet that
oh, you might have been right. Kodal's massively damaged.
Yeah, Kodal's had some problems. I think, well, Kodal is another driver who's, I don't think he's the one that spun, but he's also got pretty heavy damage on the front end of that machine. I don't know where he got that from, in all truthfulness, but Pendicio also went around as a reaction to whoever it was that went off the track. He's got some more damage now on the 63. What happened to the 63? That is the Irwin car. He's got quite a bit of damage on that machine.
Well, I'm not exactly certain. I'm going to hazard a guess, though, because we saw he was around over in Murray's Corners, and not too long after that, Scott brought up the fact that Victor Valley got hit with a penalty. I'm almost wondering if maybe the 82 might have punted the 63 as they entered into that final turn.
Potentially. I mean, it nearly looks as if that's like the only thing that's telling me it's not scraping damage is that there's no scuffed paint on the right-hand side of that car. But other than that, it nearly looks like he slapped the wall with the rear end, and then the front end's been kicked around into the wall as well. So both would work. But yeah, interesting.
back down pit lane in the 85, and we saw the 45 of Ethan Corder come down and actually make a 4-tire pit stop. Comes back out, still on the lead lap, currently in the 17th position. We focused on him because I was wondering if maybe they might be thinking about doing the driver change, but then I looked up at the top left, and we are just now entered into 30 minutes into this race. So if the drivers wanted to do the driver swaps at this point in time, they would have that option.
I think it'd be a bit early to try and do it now. I honestly think to try to get halfway or somewhere close to halfway to do it, unless that you have more confidence in your secondary driver pulling off an hour and a half. But then you'd also, now that is also a viable strategy, having the second driver run for quite a bit longer than the first one, and then be able to stay out under that full course yellow that we're getting at 45 minutes. Although that also would bear into question, can these drivers make it an hour and a half without having to stop again? If we're using GT logic, then yes, they could do that. I don't know if these cars have the fuel capabilities in order to do that.
Someone already just did it. Someone just did it. The 73 just pulled to pit road. That was, if I'm not mistaken, checking my list here, that would have been Casey Nemitz. And he has swapped
Oates
out
is on the car.
with points leader Jonathan Oates. Yep.
Yep, and I'm just having a quick look at the driving. Never mind, I don't get driving hours. Oh, no, yes, I do. Yeah. Nemitz has done completed 13 laps, and Jonathan Oates is now just in the car. Yeah, okay. So I actually really, really like this strategy and this setup. And I think you covered a few of the reasons, but there's more to it. The time differential. You've got an hour and a half. Remember, you've got 90 minutes from this point in the race. The field is going to be condensed in 15. Right? So you can probably come down, grab your splash or whatever, if you're feeling like it at the next stop. Alternatively, just grab some track position. But from here, it's a guaranteed one stop. This is a 45-minute run. I think 45 minutes is very much well within the realm of possibilities. So this is like a hard and fast lock-in on a one stop from here to the end of the race, and there's no penalty for doing so. I think this is actually quite smart.
Not only that, but we've been throwing out the idea that it's a swap and you're done, but I never thought about the possibility of going back to your first driver later in the race to have him finish out the race, because you'll have time to rest and get ready for the second half. And certainly, seeing how the race plays out, you might be able to gain some track position by not going down onto the pit lane. So it could be possible that we see Nemitz back in this car.
There's more actually to that, because when are you most likely, remember we were talking about track blockages earlier, when are you most likely to get a track blockage? On a restart. So by gathering that track position under the caution, you put yourself ahead of that track blockage, you protect the car. And that is a very, very clean car from Jonathan Oates. The biggest issue is that they are 7.5 seconds ahead of race leader Brandon Hawken. They cannot afford to let themselves go a lap down. If that happens, that entire strategy is out the window.
Absolutely. I mean, they would get potentially the lucky dog, but that would end up putting them at the very tail end of the field behind the lead lap and the lap down machines. And again, goes back to the point you just made earlier about the potential of track blockage. I mean, that's basically the entire field you'd have to make your way through. It could be parked in one of those corners, especially one of those blind corners. I was noticing as well the 22 out of PJ1 Motorsports, running in 8th place. That's Isaac Johnson. Now, he is teaming here tonight with Jack Painter, who usually drives that 22, and Painter is only 71 points back of the guy who currently holds the final playoff spot, being Evan Rice. If that 22 car were to go to victory lane here tonight, more than likely it would everybody and lock up a playoff spot.
Big spin. I think might be Dustin Dawes? I'm not 100% sure. Somebody was around heavily into the barriers. I think it was the 046 car, actually. Yeah, it was Dustin Dawes, just consulting in Griffin's bend. Looks like he's just downshifted too early coming into Griffin's and just locked the rear tires, and then things just fired straight in the fence.
He's had a tough run of it here so far in this one. Only a lap down in the 31st position, and right now the last car running on the racetrack.
Ooh, actually, you know what he did? I think he broke too late and he was trying to avoid ramming into the car in front of him, because that didn't look like a lockup. It looked like he was trying to not take out the guy in front, which would have been a lead lap car.
He was like on the corner entry. Like if that was going to happen, you would want to do that on corner. Like you'd do it wide on the corner, I suppose. But then again, it's difficult. It's a difficult one. I suppose you've probably looked at the replays. You've got a better feel for that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at it, and it didn't seem like he locked anything. It seemed like that he sailed in way too hard and ended up having to. Now, it wasn't a very well avoidance strategy. I'll put it that one. It was it was more or less just turn it and see where it went. But an avoidance strategy nonetheless, and maybe trying to avoid a penalty at the sake of more damage. It's already very heavily damaged. There's nothing to lose running in 30th, so maybe some courtesy, as I think it was actually the 22 that was the one that he was going to run. No, it wasn't the 22. It was another 20 car.
Behind it, yeah.
It was 27. It was the 27 that he was trying to avoid.
That would have been Tristan Hagenstein. He got the 63 of Ryan Pandicio, was slow there, getting onto the pit lane entry and coming to the attention of his crew. We're going to drop back again to the battle we were watching before we cut to him, and that's the 18 of Rudy Valentine trying to hold off 199 of Ryan Shelton. And we just looked moments ago at the track conditions out here in terms of the weather. The ambient temperature 66 degrees and 68 degrees for the track temperature. Obviously not going to heat up nearly as much as it would at a short oval or something like that, but the fact that these tires are starting to wear down here, Scott, you talked about how difficult it is to maneuver this racetrack, and that would be with fresh tires. I mean, what are these guys dealing with now as we are almost 40 minutes into this race?
I mean, right now, it's basically all the same things that were happening earlier, but just less grip. Oh, okay. All right. You're talking about pit lane strategies. Pit lane closes at the 42-minute into this race mark. We are a couple minutes away from getting there. So that is why Ryan Shelton is doing exactly what we were talking about a few minutes ago, and he's filing through the pit lane early. He's guaranteed to stay on the lead lap. I think that Shelton and his teammate might actually be the lead car that pulls this strategy.
This is going to be interesting to watch here, too, because a couple of weeks ago at the Indianapolis road course, we were speculating that we might see a number of drivers come to pit lane before what was going to be the competition caution in that one. I think only one driver went with that strategy, and it was Jake Poulin at the time. I think we're going to see a lot more drivers with how spaced out the field is pulling off that strategy, trying to pit before the comp caution comes out, before pit road is closed, and then gain all that track position on the upcoming restart.
Again, everything that I said about that track blockage, that is the crucial factor, whereas Indy, that doesn't happen.
Ryan Shelton didn't make a driver change into that stop. All he did was get full service, but that's good because now he doesn't have to come down and do it later, guaranteeing at least another stop at the end of this race for a driver swap. So yeah, great strategy to avoid the blockage. This is the thinnest track that these drivers and these cars in this series at least have been to. And I know that we were making comparisons to a Nordschleife in the way that it drives. It is very similar to that, but another track that this kind of is similar to in the sense that it's demanding is, and I mentioned it earlier and I keep mentioning it, but Macau is another track that is very similar to this in the sense that it has a lot of elevation change. That one's a proper street circuit, though. That one's right in the heart of the city.
Proper street circuit?
Well, this is, yeah. What I mean is that one is smack dab downtown in the middle of the city.
Would you take this track to go get the milk at the corner store, Scott?
Look, to be perfectly honest, if you keep your eyes on Ryan Shelton here in a moment, he's going to come around Conrad. You can actually see people's. If you keep your eyes on the infield section of the track, not the external, there's actually a gate just here somewhere. Yeah, there's multiple gates. These are people's residential addresses right there.
Oh, that's. I'll take back what I said about that,
Yeah,
but
I think he's got you.
He's got me there.
There's also a motocross track across the top of the mountain somewhere as well.
Got some more on pit road, by the way, guys. Aaron Smith, the second, is ducked onto pit lane, being followed by Patrick Fogel in the 115. Closing in there, as mentioned, to when pit road would be close to these drivers just prior to the comp caution.
Interesting factor at this point in time, Seth. Keep your eyes on the battle from about 19th back to 23rd. The leader is a couple seconds behind these guys coming to our competition caution. This is a very crucial section of the race for these guys.
Ryan Rocky, Tristan Hagenstein, they're in this group. Jonathan Oates, who of course hopped into the car about 3 laps ago, filling in where Kristen Nemitz started this race in that 73 car. Dalton Cowden and Adam Kodal also in this mix. Those 5 drivers just barely in the tail of the lead lap, as I think we had another driver just hit pit lane, and I believe it might have possibly been, well, I think he might have actually gotten close to the pit road entrance but didn't pit, and that would be AJ Henderson.
He might have thought about it and then saw how much time he had left before the lane was closed and then dove out of it. But
oh, Patrick Fogel right in front of him, hard into the wall with the right side of his machine. He had just been on pit lane.
and he's still continuing on, though, at least on my screen. Fogel is the 115 going up the track. Some heavy damage on the right side of the car now, especially on the rear end and towards the front, but continuing to go up the mountain. I think he might have gotten away with it.
Here come the race leaders. Parker White, Brandon Hawken, Logan Helton. They've all hit pit lane. Alan Bose in the 32 is going to stay out.
Just having a look back at that.
Is that a full course yellow or is that the
Yeah,
comp
we do.
caution?
We have a full course on the track. It's right before the comp caution comes out. I'm not sure what for,
For
though.
crash at McPhillamy. There's no crash right now at McPhillamy.
Maybe the
115
again? Yeah, he's sitting on pit lane. I don't think he had made his way completely.
Oh no, you're right.
around.
You're 100% right. It was the 115. It was 100% the 115. I've just watched it through. It is at McPhillamy. He's effectively, I think he's had steering damage as he's coming across the top of the mountain. He's just got back to the gas just slightly too aggressively, and it's basically blocking the track. He's bounced back out, and he's at 90-degree angle to the track. He's caused massive damage to the 85 machine, and there was another car that just barely dodged him as well.
That other car would have been Victor Valley in the 82, and the car that he made contact with was Spencer Ray. And again, we also were briefed in the drivers' meeting, what brings out a full course yellow? Well, if the track is blocked up and more than 3 drivers are involved in an incident, that would constitute a full course yellow. So this will be our competition caution at this point in time.
Man, that sets up a lot of these drivers interesting for strategy. I don't think they were quite anticipating 5 minutes before that the comp yellow would come out.
Okay, so there's actually an issue in game with the iRacing pace car, which is this can actually happen sometimes. This is it's stuck at the end of pit road. It's waiting for the leader to come on by what I'm seeing.
And that race leader would be Alan Bose in the 32, driving for Team Sean Butler. We're going to see Butler in that car eventually, I'm sure, 4th in the point standings. The other drivers that stayed out that currently will be the top 3 here under caution, Adam Gilliland in the 62 and Nathan Rabideau in the 93. The caution actually works out for a couple of drivers in particular, though, because Parker White, Brandon Hawken, and Logan Helton came down from 1st, 2nd, and 4th. With this yellow flag coming out and they're completing their pit stops with how much time they had on the rest of the field, they're currently running in 4th, 5th, and 6th.
That's incredible.
iRacing pace car has just strolled out of pit lane, so it'll pick up Alan Bose as the leader.
All right, so Bose, Gilliland, and Rabideau both, as Seth said, all of them stayed out on pit road. Does this benefit the drivers that came in early? And most likely what I'm talking about is Jonathan Oates. He's still back in 18th. We'd have to wait for everybody to cycle around, but that might play out for him as he doesn't have to stop. These other drivers do, but your point, the other drivers that came down the pit lane, they'll come out. Ryan Shelton, for example, the 199, he was mired pretty far back as well, but he is now back in 15th. He was in the top 10, I believe, before this all happened, so now he's going to have to play catch up a little bit more, but we'll have to see what these drivers do in front. Do we anticipate seeing Bose and Gilliland on pit road? I would more than likely think that they are.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they weren't, just based on the fact of wanting to come down, maybe have a little bit of extra grip in terms of the tires. I mean, they've been out there now for 20 circuits, 19 of them under green flag conditions here. So, I mean, I would certainly think that they would want to get the fresh rubber, if anything. And kind of to build off the question you were asking about, you know, does this caution benefit Jonathan Oates in terms of track position when everything plays out? There's 10 cars ahead of him that have not been to pit lane yet. With him running 18th, he would be up inside the top 10 in 8th place for the upcoming restart if everybody that hasn't pitted yet duck onto pit lane this time.
I'm expecting a lot of those cars not to come down pit road. A couple reasons. One, they're going to be nice and light on fuel at this point in time, so their acceleration is straight line. Really good opportunity for them to grab spots that way. However, their tyres will be a little bit... The integrity of the tyres won't quite be there. They're going to have long enough, though, for these tyres to cool down. Under pace laps here, you can save a ridiculous amount of fuel. There are multiple instances during the Bathurst 1000 race where the V8 supercars have basically idled their way under pacing conditions up to the cutting, and then from there they shut the engine off whilst they're running downhill. The instant they have to come back uphill, they idle it up there again. The instant that they crash Brock's Skyline, they shut the engine down and do not refire the engine until they get down near the chase. So you can save a ridiculous amount of fuel with these cars. So there's a really, really good opportunity here for guys that are using their heads, shutting the engine down. Normally, I actually don't recommend that you shut the engine down. Bathurst is one of those tracks where I actually do.
And I think we got a number of drivers there from 5th down through 8th that are actually shutting the engine off, letting it coast on the downhill section there. Logan Helton, Andrew Schwartz, Parker White in the mix of all of that. We're on board here with Alan Bowes in the 32, following behind the pace car. And you mentioned the word save. His caution saves the 15 of Keith Sherman, because he was the first car one lap down. He's gone around, gotten his lap back, so we should have a total of 23 drivers back on the lead lap here. And I don't think there's really going to be any opportunity really for wave arounds either. I mean, there's a couple of cars that might be ahead of the eventual race leader, which I'm going to assume is going to be the... Actually, I'm not certain. A couple of cars are actually falling back, I'm now noticing. Brandon Hawk and Parker White and Logan Helton, they've actually dropped
Oh,
back
look at the
here.
snake coming back into the pit road.
Yeah, we got a massive train going on to pit road right now. Bose, Gilliland, Rabideau, they're all coming in pit road. A couple drivers that are a lap down have stayed out. I would dare say that almost everybody that was running in the top half of the field is coming down pit road, save for...
Shelton's going to be the lead car.
Jonathan Oates has come down as well.
Well, he's coming down to grab a splash. Like, when you look at his track scenario, he's only going to have to take a splash. I'd say he won't take tires, and he's just going to refuel that tank, which means that he should come out as, like, one of the lead cars on this pit cycle. So many drivers. I just saw a whole bunch of drivers, and their cars just blink out on pit lane. What that means is that is what iRacing does to do a driver change. Basically, the driver has to get out of the car, and then you have to put a new driver in. During that period, you actually have to reset the car, because it has to redraw it on the new driver's screen, and it has to shuffle everything over. So when the car actually blinks out, that's iRacing doing all of that sort of stuff.
Justin Malolo into the 02, Matthew Zwack into the 18, Lucas Palesso into the 45, Jack Painter takes over the driving duties for the 22, and it looks like Blake Reynolds is going to be hopping into the 62 here for this upcoming restart.
Just having a look. Nate Stewart is up ahead of Nathan Rabideau as well. So Jonathan Oates, like I said, came down, grabbed fuel, restarts right behind Nathan Rabideau. That is a huge jump in spots for him.
Huge. And a couple of other drivers strategy as well here. Sean Butler is now in the 32, and Jake Poulin in the 00.
So pretty much everybody in the top 10 made their driver swap under that last time around, and won't have to do it again. If they choose not to. They might choose to put somebody back in, but I don't think that they would, given the fact they'd only be running 10 minutes longer than the first driver. So now we'll have to see what their pace is like. Shelton, though, has absolutely planned this perfectly. Right now running in first. He's got Parker White right behind him. So these drivers massively benefited from the early stop, and now basically control the fate of this race. I don't know what the 199's fuel situation is, given the fact that he's been out on a he's only been on a 4-lap stint, so his fuel position is pretty well also. So wouldn't imagine that he's be too pressed for fuel. Very possible we could see in this 199 at least finishing in the top 5 at the end of the night.
It's like a couple of drivers may have taken wave arounds there. Looks like Tristan Hagenstein, Adam Kodal, like they took wave arounds. Keith Sherman's back on pit road after getting the lucky dog. Dalton Cowden is on pit lane. I think he might have taken a wave around as well, as he was a lap down just prior to that caution coming out. So the way that they're currently stacked up here for the upcoming restart, Ryan Shelton the leader, Parker White in second, Brandon Hawk in third, Logan Helton in fourth, and Nate Stewart completes top five. Nathan Rabideau in sixth. Seventh is Jonathan Oates. Cole Freilich in the eighth position with Gary Waterworth, and now swapping into the 62, Blake Reynolds, who has, after Indy Road Course a couple weeks ago, I believe it's now 6 road course wins here in the Grand National Series this season.
And I tell you what, strategy is playing a huge factor here. The lights are still on in that pace car as well, so we're going to be doing another lap here behind the pace car.
It's a long way around the circuit on pacing. Running our best laps so far have been, well, looking at it now, Ryan Shelton's best lap was a 2:13. That is miles off the pace of the guys behind him, so I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be able to hold this lead.
We're going double file for this restart. I just heard that. Oh man, I would strongly recommend that the admins take that back. Can we single file this bad boy out?
Double file going into a corner that's dubbed Hell Corner? Yeah, I agree with you. I might want to second guess that. Lights are out top the pace car. There are a couple of other drivers that are out of the event at this point in time. Patrick Fogel has brought the Mad Sim Racing machine to the garage area. Spencer Ray's had a tough break as he was involved in that incident with Fogel up there towards the uphill section. And also Tyler Williams has brought the 34 into the garage area. So total of 6 drivers in the garage area. We've got 28 cars that are still out there on the racetrack, and 23 will be on the lead lap when we get ready to take the screen.
Okay, so I want to clarify the reason why I made the comment of why I think we should single file. The reason isn't necessarily going down into Hell Corner. That's fine. That's a regulation road course corner. The problem is when you double file a restart like this, is it condenses the field even slower, basically taking half the length, right, of the field. As compared to single file. Now what happens then is that cars all check up, everyone starts stacking things up. When you go single file on a restart like this, you give yourself the opportunity of getting up here to Griffin's Bend, and then the climb up to the cutting. For less cars to be in a condensed space means it's far more likely that the track will, far less likely that the track will get blocked.
I would also imagine we're going to see some drivers go 3 abreast going into Hell's Corner, which might not play out very well, even though there is runoff.
It's a too wide. It's a too wide scenario. You can't do 3.
Cannot do it. I wouldn't put it past some of these drivers to make it bold move into it though, and that's the thing that scares me the most is that we still have more than an hour to run, and I said it earlier at the beginning of the program. Don't try to win the race on lap 1. You don't really want to try to win the race here either. You're essentially, a lot of these drivers are new. They haven't run this car in this race yet. They've had practice laps and everything so far, but they haven't been out in the track during the session so far. So essentially you're starting a new race for a lot of these drivers, and you don't want to try to win on the, what it'll be, the 23rd lap either. We still have over half a race to go still before we get to the end of it. So maybe not try to do that as much. I don't know. Maybe we will see these drivers be sensible.
I think you've fully explained that one, and it's understanding your relative pace in the car to those people around you, combined with older tire strategies and a whole bunch of different things. It's hard enough just getting the car around, let alone trying to work the car out at the same time as you're trying to understand the pace of all the other cars around you. Yes, it's you're close. Yeah, but like, ooh, this is going to be spicy. I'm looking forward to it, don't get me wrong, but ooh.
And here's the thing, too. You know, we end up starting this race with a standing start. Now they're going to get a bit of a running start going into that first corner. And when you consider it, too, with, don't try and win the race here on this restart lap, a number of drivers just jumping into the car for the first time in this race, they kind of owe it to the driver that was in the car before them that kept the car in one piece to make sure that things at least survives until the closing stages.
The worst part is getting into a car, or getting out of a car rather, and then having, looking up on the monitor and having it wrecked out later on in the race. That it's a gut-wrenching feel. And it's happened to me several times where and I've been on the end of crashing the car as well. So letting the team down, you don't want to let the team down, and you don't want to be let down
I'll put
by
it to you this way.
your teammates.
V8 supercars single file their restarts here. That should tell you all you need to know.
It's going to be fun to watch them try it, though. I know that in the GTs they try to do it too wide, although they don't. They do not have as many full course yellows as you think they would, but they do have quite a few considering. Safety cars off onto the pit lane. This is going to be an interesting restart, as Shelton and White are now the two leaders as we get ready to go back under green. And we're back racing 1 hour and 4 minutes. We'll make that 1 hour 5 minutes to go in the race.
Whoa, big lockup. My goodness, they were 3 wide there with Logan Helton and Parker White trying to get around. Then race leader Ryan Shelton, who could not find the brakes there into Hell's Corner.
Are you ready? Are you ready for the chaos to ensue? These cars get super light when they come over that crest there. A bunch of cars with fresh tires on. Shelton is suddenly just going backwards. Cars with brakes locked. There's nearly a 3-wide situation in the middle of things, and they manage to make it through Griffin's Bend. Everyone gets out of there okay. It's actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Shelton and Rabideau. Oh goodness. Shelton and Rabideau almost made contact again, going up the hill again. But man, there was a lot of locking up going into Griffin's, and they're still single filing out as they're still kind of double file. Now they've gotten single file back between the top 10, as that could have been a lot worse given the fact that Shelton locked him up instantly going into turn 1. Is able to gather it back up, but now runs 5th place as Hawken trying to get away from Helton, who had a bit of a run on him.
Brandon Hawken and Parker White, they were exchanging the race leads back during that first stint. Hawken eventually ran down the pole sitter, got around him, was starting to open up some daylight, but then when the two of them came down pit road, Parker White had started closing in and actually took the race lead back before they got to the commitment line. Hawken, though, with the aid of that 199 locking up the brakes and kind of holding up Parker White, now back out in clean air, has Logan Helton in his rearview mirror. And noticing a couple of these guys that just stepped into the race cars here. You've got Jonathan Oates in the 9th position, just a couple of spots ahead of him. There's Blake Reynolds in the 62. He's all over the back bumper of Rabideau for 6th.
Trying to stick it out the outside. Trying to hold. Oh, there's some contact. Rabideau with a good save, but almost getting run into by Freilich, who had to check up to try and avoid that. And now here comes Oates to try to pick up the pieces around the outside, going into Murray's. Can he get it done? I think he's going to try the cutback. Not enough run to get out of it. He couldn't pull alongside, but now it is going to be a run for Freilich trying to get around Rabideau as he weaves side to side. So too does Oates as they go into Hells. I don't know if they can hold on to it, but somehow they do. They're stacking up the field behind them.
I didn't think Rabideau left Freilich enough room there. He really cramped his room. Freilich had the nose in there. I nearly feel like that should have been Freilich's corner, to be perfectly honest with you. He squeezed him in, and Freilich used his head and recognized what he needed to do to get the car through there. So Rabideau struggles all the way down at the bottom of the hill, but he looks strong in the early phases, the acceleration zones, and up across the top.
Butler there trying to follow in the tire tracks of Jonathan Oates. He will. They'll make their way around Aaron Smith the second, dropping the 70 back outside of the top 10 to the 11th position. Further up,
in the fence! In the fence! That's Freilich!
Freilich does make contact.
See the damage on the right front.
A lot of damage.
If that's not steering damage, because that was a heavy hit.
Yeah, I think he hit the curb and then just bounced onto the wall.
Yeah, he bounced. Basically, he hit the curb. The car's just not turning right, not turning right, not turning right. Fence is basically how that went. So, oh man, look, everyone's done a phenomenal job. I'm actually thoroughly impressed. It's difficult to get a lot of these GT style cars through this lap double file in the early phases, especially where the track really narrows right around Griffin's and then up to the cutting. But these guys have done double file in NASCARs that don't like this kind of action, don't like these kinds of tracks. They've done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, and you may have noticed, Scott, that one question I didn't ask you pre-race was, where are the typical passing zones here at Bathurst? The reason I didn't do that is I've covered enough FTF Grand National Series races that I know they make their own passing zones in places where you wouldn't necessarily expect an overtake to happen.
well, okay, so if you're going to talk about... Oh, I'm just watching Freilich all sideways coming out of the chase. He lit those rear tires
I'll
up.
be more surprised if he's got it pointed the right way. That car's got slideways pretty much the entirety of this race so far.
Yeah, I don't know, that thing is... he's driving it in a different manner, shall we say? Turn right to go left? Is that how that works?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
I
I was about to say, I took all of my driving instruction from the movie Cars, and this video has now just been DMCA'd by Disney, so shout out to Matt Rod, who's going to be hearing about that one. Yeah,
Love
look,
you, Walt.
passing zones up here coming into Griffin's Bend is the first one. You can make it too wide going into the cutting and get a pass down. From there, it single files out all the way down to Forest Elbow. Forest Elbow, you can send it, but you require the assistance of the car on the outside to really open the door for you and just let it happen. And generally, if you've got a nose there, it's the best in their best interest to make an overtake as well. After that, all the way down the straight, pick up the drafting assistance through the chase. Chase on the brakes there is probably the main overtaking opportunity throughout the lap. And then once again down into Murray's is the other one. So Hell Corner, Griffin's Bend, the cutting, Forest Elbow, the chase and Murray's. That's really it. Across the top, single file. Don't even try it.
Unless you're feeling extremely brave and want to try it over over the crest.
No, just no. You clearly haven't driven these cars, man.
No, trust me, it's a bad idea. I don't recommend it, and I've seen a lot of people get it wrong, especially in the 12 hours. But you know, if you want to and you feel brave, especially at the end of the race, then
okay. I'll put it this way: if I had a fast repair up my sleeve, even then, no.
Perhaps, yeah, but no, not right now. He's what I'm surprised is I've been watching Freilich go around the track. After his crash, he hasn't had what seems to be that much issue with the car. He obviously he's much freer now than it used to look, and he's had some struggles going up the cutting and Quarry a little bit. But what he really hasn't... Oh, never mind. Woo! I take what I was saying. What he is... I'm surprised, given the state that the car is in, that he's been able to hold off Jonathan Oates and Butler, but that might be short-lived as Oates tries to stick it up the inside. Doesn't quite get the move done, although I don't know if... maybe Butler has ideas to go on Oates, because now it's side-by-side, Oates and Butler. Butler's got the position, he's got the inside line going into Hells. Can he hold it? Bit of a lockup, almost some contact, but still side-by-side drag race up the mountain straight.
And Freilich just says, yes, please. Can you guys keep doing that? That's just going to keep buying me that breathing room that I need. So Freilich, I was really concerned. He got the car sideways. Reason, again, he bounced off the curb, grabbed the curb, car went airborne, didn't want to turn. Then when it landed back down, overloaded the tires, car kicked out sideways. So I was just like, he's gone. He's dead. The problem is that Oates overdrove the car. He got back to the throttle super aggressively, trying to get the car up to the rear bumper of Freilich, and Freilich just said, yep, okay, sweet. And Butler went, okay, all right, I see an opportunity for a move here as well, buddy.
I think right behind this trio of yellow machines, you've got the Subway Ford Mustang of Andrew Schwartz. Now, this is kind of the Andrew Schwartz MO. Started this race back from the 25th position, has picked up 13 spots since the start, up to the 12th spot, and it doesn't matter what type of a racetrack it's at. He's one of those drivers that does not usually qualify up the front, rides towards the back, and then makes his forward progress. He's done a very good job of methodically making his way up towards the top 10.
And he's right there on the cusp of it as well. If he can get around Smith and Oates, who continue to battle, he might be able to do it within a couple laps time, and especially I think he's got the pace in order to get around Freilich as well, so he could potentially get up into a 7th or make that an 8th place position at the end of all of this. Something that we have to also take into consideration is that in order to get any higher than Freilich and 8th, he's got to be able to run down Shelton, because the way that the 80's been running since his contact with the wall, it's holding that stack of cars up, and 7th on up has been able to pull away from those guys. Right now they're running much faster lap times than they're running much faster laps overall than they were than Freilich was a few times back, so they got to get around him if they want to make forward progress. But that's a good 4 positions that Schwartz can make up if he can indeed get around them. But the problem is that trying to make the pass on this track is extremely difficult, especially when you have cars that are running similarly paced to you, even or on parts of the track that you need to set up the pass in.
So Dustin Daw is having an issue. I believe that was out of Forrest's elbow. He is, with the list we were given of drivers that were going to be splitting time in their respective race cars, he is the last driver to complete the driver swap. He was listed with the 046 along with Marcus Ciasco, but we have yet to see Ciasco make an appearance in this race. Still 55 minutes left to go. As great battle here for fourth place between a couple of Supras. Nate Stewart trying to hold off the 62 of Blake Reynolds.
Oh, look,
Really amazing battle right now.
Yeah, I know. And the benefit is, like, you've got to remember that this is drivers versus car versus track versus other drivers, and it's not as simple. Normally you say, you know, in these sorts of circumstances that it's just that simple, right? It's just as simple as driver versus driver. You know, the tires, all of that sort of doesn't really come into the equation, but the phenomenal nature, the undulating surface, the bumps, the scrapes, the walls, the concrete, the curbing, the throttle pickup, how cautious you have to be with that. Tonight has been just an excellent story in car control, in patience, in excellence behind the steering wheel, because you cannot be successful. The reason that Bathurst has such a name for itself is that the best in motorsport have come here, and they have walked away with a beaten car, defeated, and going home with their tails between their legs. And look at the skill that not just one, not just two. We've got nearly 10, 15 guys here with fresh cars. Well, I think Freilic's lap just ran out.
Yep, I think it did too.
Oh,
Look out!
No.
Coming right back up in front of the 18 of Matthew Zwack.
It's going to be some heavy contact on the front end of Zwack's car. He didn't make a lot of contact, but it was enough to really put a dent in it. That's going to undoubtedly throw off the downforce on the front, what little downforce there is on the front of the car. So I have to keep an eye on that. There might be steering damage as well, but that was job done. If you're Schwartz, you just made bank, because now he's made it up to 8th place.
I'm still watching Freilich. Freilich just come out of the whole corner, and he's shifting up through the gear. No, none whatsoever. He lit the cars up for about 100 feet. He's just on the throttle, and he's like, okay, I'll just shift up because I've got no rear grip. We'll just, we'll short shift. We're still looking bigger. I think he's in third gear, still spinning the tires, coming out of the whole corner then.
And the leaving 11s all the way up the road.
Licorice straps. I call them licorice. Hey, there you go. This is a really good opportunity for something that us Aussies refer to as bogan car culture, bogan terminology. So a bogan is basically a guy that's very invested in their V8 cars. Very similar to kind of redneck culture, but more centered around cars. And instead of it being trucks... Whoa!
Oh, that's day done. That's got to be day done.
And yep, looks like he's bringing that car to pit road.
Oh my god. He's done. He completely done. He's just left the server, straight up.
Yep. That's the day done for Cole Freilich. Man, he had his hands full pretty much the entirety of this race, and his luck runs out about 10 minutes into the second half.
You got a lot of airtime, but it's not the airtime that you wanted to have. Unfortunate. It's bad when a driver goes out like that, because they had a lot of skill going into the race. They had a lot of good luck at the beginning, and then all of a sudden it just backs out at the second half. And it really started after the restart, but you can't continue to drive a car like that around this track.
I had an interesting conversation with Seth yesterday, and I actually wanted to pick up somebody else's brain who actually drives on iRacing. Sorry, Seth, but you don't get to buy into that conversation. We'll try. We'll get you on here one day. Now, the way that I always put it, and the way that I review my races, is that all the action that happens later on, you can sit down and go, oh yeah, I'm incredibly unlucky. But ultimately, you've put yourself in that sort of a position. What is your stance on it, and how do you continue to improve and continue to work on things as a driver? If you make a mistake, you make a half spin early on, you lose 5, 6, 7 spots, you put yourself amongst traffic, and then something happens whilst you're in that traffic that puts you out of the race. Is that luck, or is that all down to that mistake that you made?
That does come down to your mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
If you've made a mistake and you've put yourself, we'll put an example. I race more Assetto Corsa than I do iRacing. But we'll put it this way, on Competizione, when you make a mistake and you put yourself into a group of GTs that are might be much slower than you. Maybe you've qualified higher than them and you've got faster lap times. Then you have to fight your way through that traffic, and depending on the track that you're at, now Bathurst is one of the tracks on Competizione that you might find yourself racing in. If you try to battle through traffic on that game, especially when you have maybe a faster pace, then yeah, you can call it unlucky, but if you hadn't gotten the initial contact, then absolutely, you put yourself in the unlucky situation. And what happens in that group might be unlucky. Like, even though that let's say there's contact in front of you, and now that you've gotten the track gets blocked up or whatever have you, then that might be unfortunate for those drivers. But as far as your race goes, it's not luck.
And that comes back to exactly what Frelick just did there. Because of the way that he re-entered the course and spun the rear tyres, and then he barely managed to get the car back under control coming out of Hell Corner. Basically, by the time he gets up to Quarry and across the top of the mountain, that's his luck. You can say, oh yeah, the car stepped out on me, that was a little bit unlucky, but he overheated the tyres and he got up there and he kept continuing to drive the car as fast as he was previously. You cannot do that in these cars.
Especially given the fact that there's...
I can't add anything in when it comes to iRacing, but you guys are talking about mistakes. I can chime in on that. I've had a few of those.
Can we get Matt Rod to the broadcast booth? There's a guy that'll tell you about mistakes.
Ooh. Yikes.
Sean Butler made a little bit of a mistake there, heading down towards Murray's corner, and had to give up a spot as a result to Jonathan Oates, so Oates moves up to the 10th position. And I just want to touch here on Blake Reynolds, because I've been watching his lap time.
Parker White just caught the fence going into Griffin's.
And that'd be third place. There's Blake Reynolds right behind him. And Reynolds running in fourth place is running lap times equal, if not just a tick faster than the race leader, Brandon Hawken. And again, I mentioned the fact that he has been a road course ace here this season. 6 trips to victory lane. 5 of them have taken place at road courses for official wins, including Road Atlanta, Spa, the Daytona road course, COTA, and the Indy road course a couple of weeks ago. Also bear in mind, he picked up a win in the second stint of the Scuba Nationals at the Small Mini Go-Kart road course. Whoa, Parker White! My goodness, did he go over the curb there, and that's going to cost him.
He's complete. Oh, actually, he loaded up to make the corner. I wasn't sure if he was going to blow on by that, but he actually managed to hold it in. Now, this sets him up, though, for a potential overtake from the aforementioned Reynolds, because he's right behind him now, and they're going to head down into the chase. That could be what Reynolds really needs. Now, the bad side for Reynolds is that he's 7 seconds behind the leader, and if you're running equal to lap times, you're not going to be making much distance up, but this could put him into a podium spot. That is, however, barring the fact that Parker White is still a bullet on the straightaways.
Well, I was just about to say, in terms of pit lane strategy, Blake Reynolds, I believe, pitted under the caution. Everybody else that's ahead of him pitted before the caution to buy that track position. So he has fought his way a long way back through traffic, which in my mind, I think he's just... I think he's got the pace. I think he's just never really been able to showcase how much faster he is than everyone else, just purely because he's been overtaking just about every lap so far. The other thing that may come into things is if Reynolds picks up when the distance is... I believe we're in the pit window to get home now. So any time from now, you're going to start seeing drivers come down for their final stop. The undercut might be a smart idea here. Now, the big issue is, again, he's already had to fight a long way through traffic. So right now, whilst he's still making hay, I would stay out. The instant that he's no longer making ground on anybody else around him, that's when I start to come in.
And a good wad of cars back here. This is 12th to 14th. AJ Henderson, Gary Waterworth, Matthew Zwack, and Jake Poole. And then can I get just a little bit of a shout out here to AJ Henderson running with the Controller King sponsorship on that Aqua Teal Supra. Team name coming tonight, I Race with a Controller.
That is, oh man. If he's actually doing this on a controller, and there are guys out there that do that, you're a madman. You're an absolute mad. Why? Why would you do that?
Sponsorship, man. Gotta prove that you can do it.
We interview him after the race. Actually, you know what? The one benefit of racing on a controller is that instead of it being your entire body that's sore and stiff after a race like this, is that it's only going to be your fingers.
Yeah, the only thing that makes you wince after the race is over is a handshake.
No. That is true. And I like how he's been able to run and stay competitive as well. He's not in the top 10. He's, in fact, quite a far ways bit back from the top 10, but he is
car
faster
around.
than most. Where's that at?
19th, it's Quarry. So that would be the Goblins
Howden
once again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Got it looped back around the right direction, it looks like, but
It's a bit of a half spin, really. I think he downshifted too late.
Adam
I would say too
Kodal
early.
starting to close in on that, but Kodal with no front end on that 133, obviously very much so off the pace.
This place
Still
is
on the lead lap, though.
around as well. So Nate Stewart's had an issue coming into the chase, I think.
Oh, he's locked up going into Murray's as well.
Yeah, he was starting to close in on that battle that was going on for third between Blake Reynolds and Parker White, and you can see that he now visibly has lost contact with those two. We saw Parker White when they were coming down a couple of laps ago into Murray's corner. He actually just moved over and let Blake Reynolds on by. Now, you talked about it, Scott, the fact that Reynolds was one of the drivers that came off of pit road during the driver swap under that caution. He, Nathan Rabideau, Aaron Smith II, Andrew Schwartz, Jonathan Oates, those are the drivers up inside the top 10 right now that are about 2 to 3 laps better on fuel than those guys like Hawken and Helton and Parker White that stayed out. 45 minutes remaining here. Obviously, these drivers are going to have to make one more pit stop. If you're Blake Reynolds, do you pit when those other guys come down pit road to make sure they don't get that tire advantage on you, even though you can stretch a little bit further?
Both work. Now, bear with me here because there's a fair bit of physics involved. It's time for one of those extended. No, actually, this one's pretty brief. The reason that I'd actually be cautious to come down pit lane early is because of the fuel weight that's going to go back in. With a heavier tank, you put a lot more pressure and a lot more load through those tires, meaning that you burn off the tire a lot quicker at the start, which is when the tires are at their best. So if you wait a lot longer before you come in and grab that fuel, that means that your tires are going to be in a better condition for a longer period of time because they have to do less work, effectively. So I would, given that the fall-off's already there, and lap times are sort of evened out a fair way, I actually expect these guys basically to run the tank out.
We had an issue for Jack Painter there going into Hell's Corner. Dropping back to the 22nd position for the 22, and now last car on the lead lap, albeit about, 45, 50 seconds ahead of the race leader, Brandon Hawken. So still with a chance of at least finishing that car on the lead lap as Hawken comes around and is going to complete his 14th lap here on this stint.
33 laps overall for these drivers as we continue to tick down the time. 42 and a bit left, about 42 and a half minutes left to go in this race. So little ways for these drivers to go, and then the secondary drivers obviously have a longer way to go than the first drivers do, but only by 10 minutes, so nothing really to talk about there. What I do want to mention is that I believe it was Scott that mentioned this, that we really didn't get to see what the speed out of Blake Reynolds was going to be. I think we have a better idea now. He's been running, not only has he been running similar lap times, in some cases he's been running faster lap times. And none of these drivers are really running consistent laps lap after lap. But what I have noticed is that Reynolds has been able to better Hawken at least a couple of times around the mountain. So maybe if he does keep this pace up, he has cut it down to within 5.5 seconds back to the leader. So he might have the potential of picking up some. I'm sorry, made that 5.5 back to second place, 7.7 to the leader. So still a bit of ways to go, but we could see him make his way up to the front. Although I think that Brandon Hawken especially has got a death grip on this lead. I don't think he's going to lose it unless there is a mistake of his own.
Can we just talk about how well Logan Helton's raced so far this race? Like, he has done a phenomenal job. He's only 2 seconds back off Brandon Hawken. Like, if you'd have asked me at the start of this race, hey Scott, who are you expecting to be up here at the pointy end? Not even in the equation. To be perfectly honest with you, he's done a phenomenal job.
As I said, we obviously have seen Logan Helton here on FRN when he drove in the Rapid Fire Pizza National Series and the Soda Guys Cup Series, and he showed what he's able to do at the road courses with a bit of a road course ringer up at the front end those. So with that prior history, not at all surprised to see him running up here inside of the podium position, and only about 2.3 seconds behind race leader Brandon Hawken. I have to chuckle too, because going back to the point Anthony was making in terms of lap times between the 89 and the 62, how they're pretty even right now, even though there's nearly 8 seconds gap between the two. It takes me back to the Indianapolis road course, where Brandon Hawken ran a good portion of that second half to the eventual winner, Blake Reynolds. And when we talked to him in the post-race and asked, was there anything you could do? He said, no, our cars were just too even. There was no way that I could gain on him. There was no way he was pulling away from me. It just stayed stationary between the two of us. It just came down to if he made a mistake or something like that. It's almost seeming like deja vu here again 2 weeks later at Bathurst.
Speaking of mistake, Reynolds made a major mistake. He was over a second slower that last time by, so now he's back to about make that 9.2 seconds back to the leader. But yeah, Helton doing great to also stay up there. And it is amazing when you see these races, when you go different tracks, different environments, completely different setups. It's amazing that you still have races that are similar, even though the situations are completely different. You think back to the Indy road course, you think to now. Watching these similarities play out, it's kind of stunning to see that these drivers, no matter what track you throw them at, they are consistent. And given the fact, again, that this track is so much more different than Indy is, Indy's flat, this one is definitely not that. So what do you think? Does that play into these drivers' all-around skill? Do you think that they're able to really hop into any car and hop into any environment and really show that they've got pace no matter what situation they throw them in? Does that give them a leg up over other drivers in the field?
I think it gives them a boatload of confidence. And ultimately, when you come to a circuit like Bathurst, you want to be coming here with just confidence and whatever you can get, under you. So ultimately, yeah, look, it's not easy. It's definitely something that's incredibly difficult to come to a track like this with confidence, but we're also talking to a lot of the guys here who are actually in a really good space in terms of where their season is. And Blake Reynolds and Brandon Hawken, I mean, they're there. And look at Logan Helton. Again, I'm going to come back to him probably multiple times. This guy is overperforming, I think, tonight. And that can't be understated. That takes a lot of skill to be this far up, and he's matching it with some of the guys that I don't think that he considered himself completely and utterly able to at this point in the race. So this is a phenomenal run for him, and I think he needs to hold his head high.
This is Logan Helton's first start in the FTF Grand National Series as well, as he's only running about 2.9, actually 3 seconds now between himself and Brandon Hawken for this race lead. Looks like we have another driver, gentlemen, that's gone to the garage area. Our pole sitter, Parker White, just came to the garage about 2 laps ago, and looks like he'll be finishing out tonight's event in the 27th position. Parker White, I do believe, races in the FTF Cup Series, so he would not be getting any points for this. A lot of drivers, much like Brandon Hawken, our race leader, they're just in it here to be able to try and find victory lane at Bathurst. If you're just joining us, we're into the final leg of our Motorsports Drop 2 hours at Bathurst at the Mount Panorama. About 37 minutes remaining here with Brandon Hawken showing the way. Seth Cole alongside of Scott Rankin and Anthony McCrory. And guys, we're still looking at when these guys are going to be considering coming to pit road for that final pit stop of the day. If you're looking at someone like Hawken, second place Logan Helton, how far are they right now?
It's got to be in the next, I would say, 10 minutes. Because you got to remember well, actually, no, it could be a lot further back from that. Because, and the reasoning for this is because they came to pit road about lap 45 minutes in, about 50 minutes in, basically sometime around there. They're on a caution for an extended period of time, so I'm looking them to, if they've fuel saved enough, and it's definitely not out of the question that they can do that, but it is going to be among one of the more tricky things that they can do today, then yes, they can go the rest of this distance and get home without a stop. Do I think that'll happen? I really don't. I don't think it's possible. So look, I'm probably looking about 15 to 20 minutes from now is when we'll see those final stops.
About the same thing. Some drivers might try to pull off an undercut and pit early if they have to. So maybe within maybe even as quickly as 10 minutes from now, they might be able to do it. But I think that you want to wait until the very end. See if you can. If you can get to the end of the race without having to stop again, then absolutely go for it. So that plays more into Scott's theory of maybe them staying out for quite a bit longer than running the remaining 10 minutes, perhaps 10 to 15 minutes of the race on fresh tires and fuel. But it all has to play out. For someone like Hawken, he can back off his pace a little bit and be able to actually maintain the lead. He's got quite a big gap back to second place now, as it's opened up to about 6.5 seconds after Helton had a horrendous lap the last time by almost over 2 seconds slower than the leader was. That might be fatigue getting to him. After all, he is taking the start of this race. He hasn't made a driver change, one of the few drivers in the field that hasn't done that. So the stress, the fatigue might be getting to him. This car might be starting to wear thin. There's a lot of factors that can go into his lap times. Right now, Reynolds is closing in on him as well. So to go back to the point, run as long as you can. But if you want to and you know that you can't make it, then might do it sooner rather than later.
One thing that's wearing thin might be the tires on the 199 Ryan Shelton, as he's done a good job, though, of keeping guys like Aaron Smith II and Andrew Schwartz in his rearview mirror, still holding on to the 6th position. He'll more than likely kind of be our measuring stick on when the window is open to be able to pit and make it the rest of the way, since he actually stayed out under the last caution, that competition caution, had pitted about 2-3 laps prior to that comp caution coming out and actually led us back to green on our only restart of the day. Looking here in terms of the playoffs, there's a number of guys that if they continue to run where they're at, they may be heading into Darlington already locked into the playoffs, and that's just through points alone. Nate Stewart running in 4th, Nathan Rabideau right now completing the top 5. Got Andrew Schwartz in 8th, Sean Butler in 10th, Gary Waterworth in 12th, and Matthew Zwack in the 13th position. All these guys looking like they are in really good shape heading into the Lady in Black, our regular season finale. And here they go. Pit road is now going to be a busy place. Nate Stewart and Ryan Shelton going to be the first ones.
So these are the guys that are looking for the undercut. They're wanting to get onto the fresh tires a little bit sooner, come out as early as they possibly can, and set sail, set themselves up for the tail end. Remember, tires here, they're only going to be good for like 1 or 2 laps. After that, it just sort of settles itself back down.
This could...
from 4th, and I believe that Shelton pitted from 6th place.
Shelton's got quite a bit of damage as well, so they might have wanted to come down and get that fixed a little bit more than it's already been, although I don't think they would have taken too much time on it. Can't really do that under green flag conditions, but comes out 14th. Sherman would be the next car back to him. So that plays into, does that equal to what the leaders are going to do? Because that was about middle of the field. What do the leaders do? Especially if you're Hawken, Helton, or Reynolds, do you bother to come in this early? You've got a massive lead up to 4th and 5th place, so I don't think it would be a good strategy this early on, but we might be surprised.
I'd stay out, and there's a reason that I would stay out right now. The reason is I want to wait until the track behind me clears up enough that I'm not pitting and coming back out in traffic. That's the main reason. The other reason that they may opt to come down to pit road is if they run into a heavy amount of traffic. Those are the 2 main reasons for me.
Yeah, that's a great point there. Right now, though, Brandon Hawken will be having to deal with traffic one way or another. That is Rich Jamison's 86 just up ahead, I do believe, 2 laps down. Last car running in the 26th position. I believe that car just up ahead of him is, I think it's Kyle Lawrence Short in the 51, who is currently 1 lap down in 23rd place, but he does have a little bit of time to be able to work around these cars, as it's a full 8 seconds plus back to Logan Helton, who is almost under fire now for 2nd place. Good lap times for Blake Reynolds, and they're visibly going into that corner about maybe 4.5, 5 car lengths off the back bumper of the 063.
been a slow, steady pace for Reynolds to close in on Helton. Helton's lap times have fallen off significantly the last 2 or so laps. So, I'm not sure if it's fatigue or if the way that the car is handling right now, but whatever the case is, Reynolds is definitely catching up. And one thing is also apparent is Hawken is pulling away. So as these two battle for second, Hawken is thanking every lucky star he's got right now that he doesn't have to deal with it, because right now he has got about a 7.7 second lead, even in traffic, which is amazing to think that he can get around traffic. As little as it is, it's only 2 cars he has to get around, but still, given the fact that he has to check up for those drivers and continue to lead the race the way he has.
4 cars on pit road. Aaron Smith the second, Jonathan Oates and Gary Waterworth potentially making their final pit stop of the day. And I find it interesting. Whoa! Has Helton slideways there going down the downhill section, able to keep that thing going to the right direction. I'm not exactly sure how, but it's interesting because I think we went back green with 64 minutes remaining. I mean, basically, these guys are pitting have completely split this final segment in half with coming to pit road when they did.
Yeah, man, wow. Can I get 4 tires and a change of underwear at the pit stop, please? If you've got that available, have that ready when I file on in. Yeah, whew. I mean, interesting moment. Not easy by any stretch of the imagination. And, yeah, look, I think that's the right call from Logan Helton.
That's the move.
Those tires have had it.
He may be sponsored by Splash and Go Graphics, but I think he wants tires to go along with it.
And this is good for him. That might have been a blessing in disguise, because it kind of made the decision for him whether or not to come down early or not. He's also got quite a bit of damage on the back end. Might be able to beat some of that out. As I believe there's been a driver change with the 22. Is that behind him?
You are correct. Isaac Johnson hopping back into the 22. He started the race, but at the comp caution, Jack Painter jumped into the car. Johnson jumps back in here for the final half hour, it looks like.
And they're mired down. Where are they running on the track? I can't find them on my relative right now.
21st is where they're currently scored, as Johnson has now actually returned into the server and is heading off pit road.
All right, there we go. So, yeah. So, far enough back, I don't think he's going to make a huge dent on positions, although when other drivers come out, he might also. He's slow on the pit exit. I don't know. It just seemed like he was much slower on the pit exit than I know these other drivers are, but that might have just been the camera angle I was looking at. But
whoa! Battle off of pit road there. That got close. Double wide coming out pit road exit between Nathan Rabideau and Andrew Schwartz, cycling them to 8th and 9th. But you talk about places not to go double wide. That almost looked like only there was room for 1 car, a 1-lane area exiting into Hell's Corner, but somehow they made it work.
That's look, sketchy. Sketchy is well, Hell Corner is actually one of the spots that you can actually make an overtaking move on this track. So take that out of the equation. That's not necessarily what I would be going for here. Hell's Corner is completely and utterly fine. Leave that as it is. However, yeah, some of the other spots around here coming down the mountain, definitely not. But yeah, Hell Corner is definitely a 2-wide scenario.
Comes the race leader, Brandon Hawken, coming to the attention of his pit crew. About 27.5 minutes left in this one, and this should turn the race lead over to the 62 of Blake Reynolds. Now, if this is at least the absolute furthest that Brandon Hawken can make it on fuel, we should expect Blake Reynolds will be coming down pit lane within the next 2 to 3 laps for his final stop of the day.
And that could be... It could be good for Hawken, because if he gets his stop done now, he'll have fresher tires in order to make the pass, or he wouldn't really have to make that big of a pass on Reynolds, but he'll be able to open up the gap to Reynolds. Now, the benefits of Reynolds is that he will have fresher tires to end this race out. We still have over 25 minutes to go in the race, so not in desperation mode yet for any of these drivers, but definitely getting there as Hawken. That was an extremely fast stop. Nothing to play for on that one. Definitely one of the faster ones we've seen tonight.
I was about to say, I wonder if he actually didn't take tires there. That would not surprise me.
He took at least rights. I don't know if he took lefts, but he did take rights.
Well, I mean, it's a road course. Yeah, generally, the going strategy to road courses, if you're taking tires, you're taking full. Like, it's...
Yeah. He spent 14.3, so it was on par with all the other drivers, but his overall lane time was only 37.3 seconds, so one of the faster lane times. In fact, the fastest lane time we've seen in the top 5. Everyone else running 37.6, 37.5, so those little bits will make a lot of difference. Reynolds, we don't really have an accurate gauge on Reynolds' lane time because he didn't have a accurate lane time the last time it was down. But the delta is anywhere between 37.3 and 37.7.
Now we saw the 32 of Sean Butler come down pit lane, and just behind him was the 18 of Matthew Zwack. That 18 car going to have a driver change here for the final 25 minutes as Rudy Valentine jumps back into the car for his second appearance in that Supra.
Oh, that's smart. Oh, that's incredibly. Oh my God, how did I not see that? That is so smart. So, yeah, these guys. This is actually really, really intelligent. So we're talking about championship implications earlier on in the evening, stemming from what happens here. Now, the driver that finishes the race gets credited with whatever the race result is. Both drivers will earn equal points if they are eligible. So, you know, there's sort of a multitude of things going on here, and this is interesting, lads. This is really, really interesting. So any of the guys that are in potential for a win here, or a really strong result here, handing the car back over to their initial driver might give them the little boost in points they need.
Well, the two drivers that did the driver swap there, if you look at Isaac Johnson in the 22, it's actually Jack Painter who's higher up in the point standings, and if he were to win, he might be able to lock up a playoff spot. Johnson is mathematically out of it, as is Rudy Valentine. Valentine had that win at Monza, but he didn't have enough starts so far this season, and even if with finishing out the rest of this regular season, he would not have closed up enough of a points cap for that win to count towards a playoff spot.
I don't know if you guys saw it, but Blake Reynolds beat out Logan Helton going up the mountain straight, and he did it on the way out of pit road. They were dead even. Reynolds had come out of pit road the same time that Helton was going around Hell's Corner. What happened was a drag race all the way up to Griffin's, and Reynolds was able to hold on and take the position away. So now, second place and charging. He's got a lot of ground to make up if he wants to get the Hawken, but definitely a pass for what I would consider a forceful second place.
And right now, running just a tick under 9 seconds behind Brandon Hawken. Now, Brandon Hawken, we talked about Blake Reynolds and his numbers at the road courses. Brandon Hawken's not been that far behind. Of course, he ended up winning the overall in the Scuba Nationals. He finished in the 4th position at the Daytona road course. He also finished inside the top 3, 3rd place at Road Atlanta, and runner-up to Blake Reynolds at Spa. So he has been right in the same vicinity as Blake Reynolds when we get to the longer road courses. But one thing I want to touch here on that we talked about earlier, Scott, is fatigue. Remember, Brandon Hawken, Logan Helton, these are guys that took the green flag to start this race. They have now been in these race cars for pushing 1 hour and 40 minutes. Blake Reynolds came into this race at the competition caution, so he's not had nearly as much seat time to have to deal with here in this one. At what point does Brandon Hawken start to feel the fatigue, and does that play into the hands of Reynolds?
I don't think it does. The fatigue, I don't think it's really going to matter. For the length of time that these guys have actually been in the race, look, maybe if it was a fair bit longer than this, they've had cooldown opportunities as well. And the other thing to consider here is that when you're going up Mountain Straight and you're going down Conrad Straight, you've got a long period of time to sort of reset, breathe, make sure that you're nice and loose on the wheel, you're not overforcing things. So I think these guys are fine. Potentially the major issue for them may be cramping in their brake foot, but that'll be about it, I really feel.
It's not like a Le Mans where there's plenty of straights that you can take a break on. You can run 4 to 5 hours at Le Mans and be completely fine. This track, it is a bit more demanding, but like Scott said, it's braking will probably be the worst of your problems. But Hawken has proven that you can... That strategy that he pulled off, because Hawken was running outside the top 10 before the well, it wasn't the comp yellow, but essentially before the full course yellow came out, and has been able to use that strategy in order to get up. He pitted extremely, or I think he pitted he pitted before the comp caution came out, and then after that he was able to stay out and never looked back. He's continuing to open his lead as someone spun behind him. That was the 63 of Gamming. Nope, that wasn't him. That was somebody else.
82 of Victor Valley.
Yeah,
That
Victor
was-
Valley.
And that would have been 3 on by before refiring the car.
That would have been a scary moment for Blake Reynolds too, because he comes down the hill, starts pointing the car at Forest Elbow, and just sees smoke. So,
But as far as the strategy played out, he played out the right strategy for this one. Been able to time it well and be able to get the lead. Track position here seems to be the only thing that really matters in the long run, especially on a restart, having the track position, because again, if the track gets blocked, you can't go anywhere. So putting himself in the strategy, I got to give it to Hawken. If he wins this race, he is getting caught up by Reynolds. So I put the asterisk if he wins this race, because we might have a battle within the last 10 minutes of the race. But if he wins this one, he did it honestly, and that will always make you feel good if you do that.
At a battle right now for 6. That's where Andrew Schwartz tries to reel in Ryan Shelton, and it looks like Shelton has run into some issues between when he came to pit road and now, because the whole front end of that car, the nose, is completely gone.
Yeah, he's definitely had a hard knock somewhere. Not sure where he would have gotten that knock. Adicio's also got no front end on his car, as well as the 51. Nope, make that not the 51. There's a lot of drivers that are missing their front ends, and I'm trying to figure out.
On Justin Malello 02.
Yeah,
I believe that might be the car just ahead of Ryan Pandicio you were talking about.
Yeah, trying to figure out where Shelton got his then from. I mean, he's had some hard knocks, but he was running in the top 5 earlier in the race. He started the leader of the restart, and he's fallen way back.
And going to give up a spot there. Back to 7th place he falls, as Andrew Schwartz finally is going to complete the pass around him, heading up the hill, heading up the mountain.
just gonna have a quick look at his lap times. That'll give a really good indication, actually, of when that's happened. So he's come out of the pits. Lap 37 was when he made that stop, and since then his most recent lap was a 2:15.766. So that says to me, I would get the feeling he's made that mistake since then. So I would say at the pit stop, I'd say he was actually in the clear. Yeah, he was. At the pit stop, he was clean. I just checked it out. So I would say it's only been in the last lap. No, it was before that. It was the last two laps. So at the end of lap 41, he crosses the line, clean car.
So, hard knock, maybe overdriving a turn, because, I mean, the car, for the most part, is clean all the way around. It's just the front end that's missing, well, obviously missing the front end, so...
Oh, he comes up underneath the tree at Quarry and slaps the fence on the inside. No, that's not what caused it. Oh! Remember how I was saying the grate? How the grate takes people? That's where it happened. He slapped the wall very heavily at the grate on the right-hand side of the car, and the game's just gone, you know what, we're going to take your front end away from you for that.
Well, that's a bit of unfortunate loss.
Well, you can obviously see he's losing ground now to Andrew Schwartz. I mean, where would be some of the prime spots on the racetrack be that damage like that is really going to affect Shelton?
Straight lines. So the downforce is obviously a relevant part of things, but I think he's actually suffering quite heavily in terms of straight line speed, because everywhere, like, I'm having a quick look at his sector times, and in the sector times themselves, it looks like the only places that he's really losing time is on the straights. Everywhere else, he's making time to the cars around him. So that's just, that's unfortunate. Unfortunate.
Now, I'm looking at the lap times here in comparison of race leader Brandon Hawken and second place Blake Reynolds. That last time by, 2:12.1 for Brandon Hawken, 2:11.6 for Blake Reynolds, so a half a second faster. Now, as you can see, we've got a little less than 16.5 minutes on our telemetry. With the 2 hours here at Bathurst, that is projected that they can make about 55 laps around this road course. Right now, we would be on the 44th lap of this event. So let's say that they will make those 11 projected laps. Is that enough time, do you think, for Blake Reynolds to reel in the 89?
No, Hawken has to make a mistake. That's the only way that this is getting resolved in that manner. So, look, I mean, it's difficult, but at the end of the day, the only way that that's getting resolved in that manner, yeah, exactly what I said.
And I think it goes back to the whole adage of catching and passing are two different things. I think that Reynolds might have the potential to get within a second. I don't think that he's going to be able to have enough time in order to make anything of it. So yeah, I agree with Scott there. You can see him on my screen. You can see him in the same camera shot going up the mountain straight. But I don't think that, like Scott said, I don't think that he's going to be able to have enough time to pass. If there was 30 minutes left in the race, then potentially. But we only have 15 to go, coming up in about 10 seconds.
Gap right now, 7 seconds between the top two. Looking here at a battle just outside the top 10. That's where Gary Waterworth holds the 12th position. Jake Poulin wants the spot. Those two separated by only about a car length, heading down Conrad Straight. I'm messing it up too, heading towards the chase.
Conrad Straight, I love it.
It's such a weird name. We don't in the US we don't have anything that's remotely close to that as far as the turn name goes. So it's
well, it's not even a turn name. It's a straight bit of road, friend.
Well, straight, but part of the circuit that is named. You kind of think of it. I don't think we have many tracks in the U.S. that have parts of the circuit that are named.
Sure you do. There's the corkscrew.
Well, we've got the bus stop. We've got the carousel. I'm not sure exactly what sport you watch.
I mean, the 20-yard line is called the 20-yard line.
Well, as far as like the whole track goes, like we have sections. I don't think that we have an entire circuit that's got names instead of numbers. But
we've got the Jimmy Johnson Wall just off turn 1 at Watkins Glen. There's a couple of others out there probably too.
As far as circuits go around the world, then I can point to several. I mean, the entirety of Silverstone is just basically one long phone book. But here, the Conrad Straight, as I got it right the first time, has played host to quite a few incidences that could have been, but were not, as everyone since the beginning of the race has gotten through there. Now, the chase is a different story. People have been in the chase several times throughout this race, but going down Conrad, it's been nice to see these guys max out about 185 miles an hour, just underneath 300, or actually around 300k if you're not from the US.
Yeah, we haven't really seen any of the incidents for the most part down there in the chase, but the tire marks in the grass there just off that corner, they definitely tell the story that corner has been an issue for drivers during the course of this event.
I mean, it's difficult trying to get the car, because every time you come in there, the car bounces in a slightly different way. The difficult aspect of that corner is that you've got to feather the brake pedal, right? You've got to come onto it and then off it a little, and then onto it again harder, and then you've got to come back off it a little bit and onto it. Basically, the whole time that you're on the brake pedal, it's not as simple as just holding the brake pedal in one spot. You're constantly changing the amount of pressure that you're applying to the pedal. So
now, down here into the chase is this battle still for 12th place. This battle's been fun to watch. Jake Poulin finally completed the pass there, coming down off of Forrest's elbow on Gary Waterworth. But Waterworth not going away quietly. He wants to get back to the bumper there.
Yeah, he definitely wants to get back into 12th. They're quite a ways back from 11th place Butler, as he's now going up mountain as we speak. But still, a good bit of battling going on here. I just thought of this, and I remember who said it earlier.
Whoa! Sorry to cut you off. We got a car that's stuck in the middle of the track. That's Tristan Hagenstein. He does get the car refired, but he was sitting with about half the lane blocked, and he's been running on the lead lap up inside the top 15. Now a lot of damage on the front end of his car into the 18th position.
It's looking more like a modified going down the straight, as he's got someone right behind him that's also in the same camp he is as far as damage goes.
That's Kodal, the 133.
Oh, that was almost some contact, but I don't remember who said it earlier in this race, but someone brought up an interesting point, is that these cars are not designed for this. Absolutely not designed for this. number one, the rear end is. If I mess this up, please forgive me. I've got a million different. I've got a million different suspension info running through my head, but it's. I believe it's a welded suspension in the sense that it's not an independent suspension at the back of the car. So whatever the back end does, the whole thing does. As far as an independent suspension goes, what you see on most sports cars, most GTs, most any motorsport other than stock car racing, you're able to adjust individual sides of the rear end in order to actually have them go over bumps and elevation changes as well. These cars do not have that. So
So what you're talking about, so in terms of an independent rear suspension, what actually happens there with what NASCAR runs is basically there's not really two springs. There are bars that you can sort of tweak and you can adjust the setup on, but it's slightly different. So normal cars will have an independent spring, which is what they mean by an independent suspension in each corner of the car that is designed to handle the shock at that corner of the car effectively. So when you say an independent rear suspension, that's what you're talking about. These cars just don't have that, which means when one corner of the car bounces, the whole car bounces.
Love this nose cam on the front end of Brandon Hawk. It feels like I'm going down a roller coaster right now, right down on the racing surface there, courtesy of our race leader, who does have a lap machine he's going to have to contend with here in the next couple corners, looks like.
Oh, wait, okay, hang on. You wait, watch until we get all the way back to the top of the course. We come up through Griffin's Bend, jump on the nose cam from there on out, because that is a camera. If you want to watch something cool, you watch it all the way up there.
Oh, that's one way for a slower car to get out of the way of the race leader. They just went off into the grass. I couldn't tell who that was.
Dalton Cowden. So jump on the nose cam from here.
Basically doing a bit of landscaping was called in that last time around. Yeah, definitely a fantastic angle to get a real sense of speed as well, because sometimes when you ride on board, you don't really get the sense of speed.
Not speed. This is the elevation change is so much more important to get the sense of here.
It's heading up the hill. You can see, oh boy. The thing I think too that I've been noticing with these cars, especially when we take like these onboard looks from the roof of the car and here with the nose of the car, just how bumpy, how abrasive this racetrack is. I mean, you would think that with some of the hits they've been taking into these rumble strips here off of the corners and everything, that they would be dealing with some damage underneath the suspension.
Yes and no. It's the way that it's about how the impacts get deflected throughout the suspension. So yes, there is definitely a part of that is a cause of concern, but yes, not really at the same time.
This car is definitely much more robust than some other cars that don't run here, because the V8 supercars are just as robust as these cars are. But if you compare these to pretty much
that dipper shot. Sorry, it gets me every time. I still cannot. The years of V8 supercar watching coming through the dipper, and it still gets me.
Yeah,
it's pretty.
It's razor's edge. It's razor's edge that you think that they're gonna hit that wall off to the left, and somehow they don't.
There are some tracks that you watch and you get bored of. This is one of these tracks that you could watch over and over and over again and never get bored of.
Battle for 7th. Sorry, I was just going to mention, got a battle for 7th here between Ryan Shelton and Nathan Rabideau. I'll let you continue your thought.
Oh, well, that was basically the thought.
Oh, okay. All right, now it's another battle on the racetrack since that's over. This is 14th place. Rudy Valentine trying to hold off Keith Sherman. Remember, of course, Rudy Valentine, we ended up seeing that he jumped back in the car, taking over for Matthew Zwack after Zwack brought it to pit lane there under that cycle green flag pit stops.
So a couple things, history lesson about Bathurst. I'm actually lucky enough to have a very close family friend who is a very good Australian superbike racer. Back in, I want to say 80s and 90s? 70s, 80s, 90s, that sort of period. Basically had bikes just sort of thrown at him. They used to run at Bathurst. They no longer do. He said that it was one of the most terrifying things. He would rather jump out of a plane with a parachute on. In fact, jump out of a plane with no parachute on than race here, but he still did the racing here on a motorcycle. So
I guess
I had
that
the opportunity back in, I think it was 2007, went down to Daytona. They had that bike week there where they actually will go around that high banking on motorcycles, and I was afraid for the motorcyclists even then. I cannot imagine trying to pilot a motorcycle around this racetrack.
I guess this would be the equivalent of a closed course Isle of Man, but even then, I couldn't imagine putting superbikes on this track and have it be effective as far as safety goes. But I bet it was
had
fun
no
to
barriers
watch.
back in those days.
Oh Lord, I bet it was fun to watch though.
Oh, I bet.
I mean, it's fun to watch the Isle of Man. I don't think if you're a spectator, you really are concerned about the logistics behind a race. But certainly, certainly seeing superbikes on this track would be fun.
Okay, so for perspective, if you're still watching from Brandon Hawkins' sort of viewpoint, I can't take my eyes off this, by the way, the noise cam, I haven't moved, which is a completely different matter, but all the barriers down this section, basically coming off of Forest Elbow all the way down, didn't exist. There was, I think some of the barriers protecting the pit lane down here existed, but not the ones, I think the ones on the right-hand side that closed in the track did exist. And down through here they existed. And there was a couple of barriers up towards the top end of town, but other than that, that was about it. That was sort of the limits of where the track barriers were. It's ridiculous, crazy, suicidal. Yes, and they love it.
Less than 5 minutes left here in the 2 hours of Bathurst, and time running out. Blake Reynolds is realizing it. That last time by had a major mistake up at the top of the course. Lost about 2.5 seconds to Brandon Hawken. Now 7.5 seconds behind the 89, and look at the lap time comparison too. He was about 2 seconds slower at the start finish line that lap, so he's feeling the pressure. I saw him even locking up the tires there when he was heading down through 11, 12, and 13. He's just trying everything he can to get a little bit of extra speed out of that race car, but looks like it's going to be too little too late here unless Brandon Hawken has a major mistake, but he has been hitting his marks every single lap. I mean, it's been practically flawless the lap times he has turned here.
He's gotten certainly into a rhythm since the last stop that he made, and he even had a rhythm before that. He's got no one in direct competition with him at the moment. He can basically run his own race from this point on out. This is one of the few solo drivers in the field to do it. And when we started the program, we were wondering how they would do this race, and right now we're looking at them. They've got 2 in the top 3, so I would say that the solo strategy, and it goes back to what your pace will be throughout the entire event. You have to figure out what your pace will be over the course of how many drivers you have if you're sharing the car, but was able to run his own race. No clear track in front, clear track behind. He could basically start his parade lap at the beginning of the next lap, because I think the time
I have a feeling he's going to get 2 in. He's going to get 2 laps in.
Yeah, time holds up the way it is. Definitely will have to do 2 laps. Unless he starts backing off now and just parks it.
Well, no, because he's gonna he'd have to back it off well before he gets close to crossing this line. So
I'll tell you
only have
one
to
thing
shave
that
about
I'll
15,
be very
yeah.
interested to find out from some of our top finishers here at the end of the day. You mentioned it, Scott. These cars are not built to run a road course like this. And I'm almost wondering if this might be the first time that a number of these drivers have run an Xfinity car here at Bathurst. And for some of these guys that have been consistently up at the front, like Logan Helton, Nate Stewart, Brandon Hawken, of course, our race leader, I wonder how many laps they turned during the course of this week in preparation for this race.
I would say a lot, because it's not an easy track to pick up. You can turn laps in other cars here, and you can pick bits and pieces up. You can get better at the course, these sorts of things. But these cars are just so different. I was doing laps before we went to air. You're braking nearly double the distance in some places that you would normally in GT cars. That is sort of the differential. So I would say for a 2-hour race, you're probably looking, I would want to put 4 or 5 hours worth in. Some of that into specifically focusing on strategy. The bulk of that probably not even, just sort of focusing on being able to turn reasonable consistent laps. That's the kicker. Yeah, you can be quick. That's fine. but you need to be quick consistently. That's so difficult.
Brandon Hawken looking for his second victory of the season here in the FTF Grand National Series and second road course win of the season as well. Of course, winning about a month ago in the Tsukuba Nationals, and he is now less than a minute away from coming around to receive that white flag. Saw some smoke up ahead of him. Someone might have had an issue, possibly that 86 of Rich Jameson that he's now passing to driver's right.
Yeah, I think he might have looped it at the Forest Elbow. I don't think that it was a full spin, given the fact he got out pretty quickly, but we've seen a lot of drivers that have moments down there. It's a really easy spot to misjudge your brakes and loop the thing, or even shift down too quickly and have the back end loop around on you. But coming around to complete the penultimate lap through Murray's, we're going to get one more out of our leader, Brandon Hawken, who is going to take the final lap with about 10 seconds to go by the time they get to the line. So this will be the final lap for Hawken, and it's been a pretty perfect race for this 89 team. I don't see a scratch on that car, knock on wood, so it could be the perfect race that he's run. I didn't think that he'd be the one to do it in this one.
Well, he started this race from the outside of the front row. It was pretty much between himself and Parker White in the first stint of this race before the competition caution. They exchanged the lead a couple of times, but then as soon as the green flag dropped for the restart after the comp caution, it has been all Brandon Hawken. Blake Reynolds has given it a heck of a try. He's been able to close up a big gap between himself and the 89, passed a lot of cars in the process. It looks like he may be finishing second place here today to Brandon Hawken. And of course, as well, going to be interesting to see when all the dust settles and all the points are accumulated, what our scenarios are heading into next week, as these drivers will have to tackle the Lady in Black, the track too tough to tame at Darlington, to set the playoff grid.
We were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, Seth, as well. Like, the run here has been so exceptional. And remember, at the end of the day, for a lot of these drivers that are fighting it out for playoff contention, I did say, you got to give Bathurst away, man. You just got to play it like it's a throwaway race, because if you take it too seriously, you can forget about your championship. The only thing that I would have been focusing on was finishing today, and a lot of drivers have done that. Some drivers have done it better than others. Some drivers have done a phenomenal job, and others are left to question a whole bunch of things, and they've got to head to Darlington and decide their championship fates at Darlington. I mean, who wants to do that? Not a lot of people would go in there and go, I really kind of want to back myself in here for a great finish at Darlington, because, to be perfectly honest, it's going to be another one of those races where I think a lot is going to happen, and it's going to be another difficult race. Not necessarily in terms of the track, but in terms of trying to pick off your positions, knowing when to push and when not to.
How about Brandon Hawken here, as he's going to be coming around into the final turn. He'll take that left-hander through Murray's corners, head for that flag stand, and he will win here tonight. The Motorsports drop 2 hours at Bathurst.
And he did it in dominating fashion. He got out front and basically never looked back. I don't think we've ever seen this car outside the top three, save for some pit stops. So fantastic drive. Give it to Blake Reynolds as well for finishing in second place. He'll come across the line. That was a whale of a drive as well, considering that all the things that he had to do in order to get to there. And Logan Helton just barely holds on for, I say barely holds on, but holds on for a third place podium spot. Given the fact that there's a lot of damage on the back end of that car, fantastic drive for the entire podium.
I think the fight's still on for 4th and 5th, and it is. Stewart's going to defend it down the inside into Murray's corner. He's going to manage to hold on to it, gets on the power a little bit aggressively, but runs out of road for Team Aaron Smith. The second, and True North Motorsports is going to finish in the background as well for P4 through 6.
Ooh, back to traffic here as Rabideau tried to get to Ryan Shelton for 7th place, but really overcooked it there into Murray's corner, and going to have to give up that spot. He'll cross in 8th. Shelton will cross in the 9th position, and we may have a battle here between AJ Henderson and Jonathan Oates. I guess they have a little bit too much daylight between the two of them. Looks like
jump. Sorry, my apologies. There's one of the best factors about this track is the ability to do a jump at the back end of the race, and these guys have got the opportunity to do that now.
Right, Hawken doing some premature burnouts there.
Top of the mountain on the way down the mountain. definitely is why you got to get all the fans involved. You know, they came out to see the race.
Oh man, look at the car control.
We doing some drift burnouts here down the hill? My goodness.
This man was not concerned about controlling his car this race.
You think?
Wow. That initial D could not have
Beautiful.
done it better. So I want to know if Brandon Hawken does Formula Drift in his spare time, because that was incredible.
Wasn't it? That was fantastic. Give that man a prize.
Oh,
Coming around
fantastic.
here to more than likely do some more burnouts at the start-finish line. There's Logan Helton pulling alongside.
Come on! Do the jump!
Congratulations.
Oh. Nobody knows about it.
Reynolds. I don't think they do. I don't think anybody knows about it.
I saw them doing it in practice earlier. Surely they
Did
do.
they?
Some of
Oh,
them
they
did,
were.
yeah.
Look at this. Okay, this is just showing off at this point. Look at it. Like I said, Brandon Hawkins was not concerned about whether or not he was going to control his car this entire race. That is incredible car control.
And gonna loop it around there in the final corner and now start to burn it down there at the start-finish line. Second time this season that he'll be taking a checkered flag in the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals, and his second win in just the span of a month. So a bit of a hot streak here in terms of road courses for the 89. Bear in mind as well, it's coming off a runner-up finish 2 weeks ago at the Indianapolis road course.
Yeah, what a run from him as well. That's been a phenomenal drive, and you know, the Indy road course run was actually really excellent from him. I thoroughly enjoyed like that race because it was so close between a multitude of drivers as well. It wasn't just as simple as, oh yeah, look, I mean, we're having a great night. Oh look, hey look, we're having a great night. No, it wasn't that simple. It was, they really had to fight for it, and neither of them was able to pull away from the other. So it was a great run all around by everyone involved.
And with Brandon Hawken, a driver that runs full-time in the Cup Series, this now puts more pressure, more emphasis on those drivers that are trying to point their way into the playoffs, not only here today, but next week, of course, as well at Darlington.
Yeah, when we get to Darlington, we've got a lot to unpack. A lot of these drivers have made moves to try and secure their spot into the playoffs. We only have 2 races to get into the playoffs, and I don't know, at this point in time, do some of these drivers go into desperation mode? A lot of them might have closed up, but do you see some drivers that you're going to eye on that might be kind of trying to make moves in a way that might damage their chances to get into the playoffs?
Guys, I've got to quickly just tell you a little bit of a story here with what I'm seeing, because last season, one of the road course races we ran, I believe it was at Montreal, Brandon Hawken ran out of fuel in the final lap. It was Ryan Pandisio that pushed him back to the start-finish line. A little bit of repayment here 1 season later of Hawken trying to help push that 63 back to pit road.
Perhaps.
That's not going to happen. Good try. Not going to happen.
They give it a right go, though. There he is.
There we go. Is that car under power, though, is the question. I don't know. Well,
absolutely not. He's got them going the right way, though. Look at it. Hey,
what a beautiful backdrop for our results.
If that's not the most Disney thing that I've ever seen in my life, I don't know what is.
Oh man, taking a look at the finishing results from tonight. We mentioned the top 3. How about Nate Stewart up there inside the top 5 pretty much the entirety of this race, bringing it home 4th for the 4 car. Aaron Smith the 2nd, also with a solid run, 5th place. And Andrew Schwartz, I mean, this guy surprises me every single week with his ability. Doesn't matter what track, what configuration. He starts at the back, and you find him up at the front in the closing stages. 25th is where he started this race, and he finishes up in 6th place.
My word, what a run. And then the guy behind him as well, in the True North, he's talking about Schwartz. Well, Aaron Smith the 2nd, 25th to 5th. So it's not just one car, it's 2 cars there. Like 2 cars that had phenomenal runs from the back of the field. And don't underestimate the amount of patience that requires out of both drivers, especially on the open laps, which is where you lose the most amount of time. So a lot of their strategy tonight was underpinned, their success tonight was underpinned by good strategy and good patience. But more importantly, I think the race tonight was actually the race winner was decided by pit lane strategy. Because if you have a look at it, the speeding 62 of Blake Reynolds, he pit under the caution. If he'd pit before, he would have been attached to Brandon Hawke, and I think we would have been seeing Blake Reynolds in victory lane here tonight. And I think the race result completely and utterly reflects that, because he had to fight his way. He lost all of that time to Brandon Hawken fighting his way through traffic. That's the difference tonight, lads.
Yeah, you could very well be right. I think also, if I'm not mistaken, Blake Reynolds actually had to get on the brakes when they were heading down into Hell's Corner on that initial restart because of when the brake lockup took place for Ryan Shelton. So that lost him a little bit of time as well to the 89 and was never able to regain it back up. But two drivers with solid outings here tonight. Nathan Rabideau finishing 8th and Andrew Schwartz just up above him in 6th place. Those two drivers came into this race overall 2nd and 3rd in the point standings. No doubt here tonight with the points gap they had coming into this race, they're going into Darlington worry-free. They're going to get to battle for the championship. They're pointing their way in, so maybe the pressure is off for them to do something a little bit outside the box in terms of strategy next week. Try and maybe pick up some bonus points with a victory at the track Too Tough to Tame. And our points leader, Jonathan Oates, I remember back when we talked to him at I believe it was Circuit of the Americas. I'm trying to remember which track it was. It was a road course, and he said, I'm not all that great at road courses, but I'm constantly learning. Well, very solid run here for the points leader in 9th. And AJ Henderson, you talk about those two guys from outside the top 20 working their way up to the top 10. Henderson actually started the furthest back of anybody that finished inside the top 10. 31st is where he rolled off tonight.
Absolutely fantastic drive to give up into the 10th place position, given the fact that it's hard to make passes here, especially it's hard to make passes no matter where you go. But I think you said it earlier in the program set that these guys will make passing opportunities to no matter what part of the track they're on. But great run to get into 10th place. And you got Butler, Pullen, Waterworth, Valentine, Sherman. They make up the top 15. So a lot of these drivers had great runs, and a lot of these drivers were able to, some of them at least were able to better their points chances getting into Darlington. But again, the question remains, how many of these drivers are going to be in desperation mode at Darlington? It's still with 2 races left, but at the same time, it's not an easy 2 races you have to go through.
Couple of drivers that kind of catch my eye there, Scott, that finished outside of the top 15. 20th place for Tristan Hagenstein, 21st for Ryan Araki. But to the point you made there around the 2 to go mark is the fact that you kind of had to come into Bathurst as this being kind of a mulligan race, but they ran all the laps. They stayed in contention, so they at least give themselves a fighting chance heading into next week.
Yeah, they're not just in contention. They've also allowed themselves the opportunity to head next week and fight out for a championship. That cannot be understated at any point in proceedings. Like, that is such an important factor that a lot of people aren't weighing up, I think, necessarily to the appropriate amount that it requires. I mean, if they were, being able to go through next week at Darlington and say, I only need X points. That is it. That's all you need to worry about, because you don't need to worry about where the other cars are finishing. The other side of the coin is, have a look at those guys who are on the outside looking the way in. They require the amount of hoops that they have to jump through. I have to be 20 points ahead of this guy. I have to do X, Y, and Z. I have to have a great race. Those circumstances, by and large, are actually out of your control. And tonight was a race that was in your control, and the biggest and best thing that you could do was keep the car clean for as long as you possibly could and let other people fall off. When I come to Bathurst, and I've tasted success here in the 12-hour. I've been on the podium, I ran 2 separate 12 hours, Bathurst 12-hour this year, and 1st and 2nd with the results. In both cases, the team and the mindset that we went into it with was, don't let the mountain bite you. That has got to be one of the biggest and most important aspects going into next week, because there is a ton of drivers that the mountain bit hard on tonight.
Definitely did. Well, some drivers that didn't have the mountain bite them here tonight and benefit from some great results. They're standing by for some interviews. We got the easy job up here. We got to call the race. Let's find out what they thought about what they had to do here in this 2-hour event. Let's see if we can talk with our 3rd place finisher, Logan Helton. Hey, Logan, it's Scott, Anthony, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, I do.
Man, a heck of a drive for you here today. Your first FTF Grand National Series race, your debut, and what a track to do it at here at Mount Panorama. But we saw that your car was fast. It was consistently up there inside of the top 5. I mean, what were some of the things you were battling with here today, and especially for the first time out here with this FTF gang?
Well, the number one thing I was battling with was just the fact that Brandon Hawken and Parker White and Blake Reynolds were all just faster than me. So it was more of me knowing when to push it and when just to let them go. So like that was just the number one thing, and I knew the race would come to me if I just stayed out of trouble. I had one incident where I just locked up heading into a I don't know the corner names because I'm not like
That's
that.
what I'm here
Okay,
for.
we don't either, apparently.
What's the tight left-hander after like towards the beginning of the lap?
Yeah. So you got Griffin's Bend, which is the uphill right-hander where you start to climb up the
Yes.
mountain.
Yeah.
The one after that's the cutting.
Yes. So right there, I locked up, and I just nosed it into the wall. No steering damage at all. It was just aerodynamic, so I was a little bit slower down the straightaways. So there was that as well. So I had to drive a little bit harder through the corners if I wanted to keep the same pace. But other than that, it was just kind of a straightforward race, and I just let those two pull away, and I just kind of sat back in third place and watched the guys behind me battle it out.
It was a long one that you had to go through, and you did it by yourself. How are you feeling at the end of this one? Because I know that this track isn't extremely easy, but you did make it look easy. And I know that sometimes when you get into a run, it doesn't feel as hard. So how are you feeling at the end of this one, given the fact that it was a long one?
I'm feeling pretty good. Nothing too crazy. My left hand's a little bit sore, but other than that, it's just more just tired. Nothing really hurting.
Oh, look, I mean, difficult race. You mentioned it. We were talking about how many cars at the mountain had bits, and I don't think that. I think there was 2 cars on the track that didn't have damage on them, and they finished P1 and P2. I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, you're off in terms of pace, but you managed your race to perfection. I definitely think there were still mistakes that were made. It's one of those difficult tracks. Did you come in with the mindset that I've just got to keep this thing clean and I'll be okay?
Yeah, definitely with this track. I mean, I think I would have finished third regardless. Blake and Brennan are just so fast on road courses. I think if I didn't make any mistakes at all, I would have been 12 seconds off of Brandon still. So it would have been a little bit closer, but the result would have still been the same, I think.
Well, Logan, a great performance for you here tonight in your FTF Grand National Series debut. P3 at the very tricky Bathurst road course. Congratulations. We're now going to hand over the microphone to you, let you thank some sponsors and do some shout outs.
Well, first, I'd like to thank you guys for putting on the broadcast, and thank you for helping me out with the corner names as well. Thank you to FTF for the Grand National Series for putting this race on. It was a ton of fun. Also, thanks to Nexus Esports, Splash and Go Graphics, and all my family and friends for watching.
That's Logan Helton, P3 here tonight at Mount Panorama. Congratulations once again, Logan, on a very successful debut.
Thank you.
Let's see if we can get in touch with Blake Reynolds, who was trying to get his 6th road course win of the season. Comes up just a little bit short here tonight. Hey, Blake, it's Scott, Anthony, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes. Could you drag my teammate in?
No,
Yes, we
no
can.
teammates. No teammates whatsoever.
No teammates?
Get Adam up
Oh,
here.
look,
Get
Scott,
him
a
up here.
teammate.
By
So,
the way, winners of the driver swap class,
yeah, there you go.
technically,
Got Adam
at a
Gilliland in
disadvantage.
here as well, who we saw pilot the 62 at the start of this race. So I guess first we'll start with Adam then, since he was the one that started this event. I mean, Adam, obviously we saw a lot of mayhem, a lot of drivers having some issues early on. The field very condensed up with that standing start. I mean, how difficult is it to make it through these tight corners with everybody kind of under a blanket?
It's probably pretty difficult back there, but Blake made it really easy on me, laying down a really nice qualifying lap, starting up in 3rd or 4th. So really, those first few laps weren't near as stressful as I'm sure some of those guys mid-pack had to deal with, with traffic through the mountains and whatnot. But really, I told Blake going into it, I just wanted to, keep the thing on track and give it to him with no damage, and we achieved that.
You did really well. Speaking on the part of the best of the driver swap team, you are miles ahead of the last guy that did the driver swap. So take us through that process. I know how it works on iRacing, but did it give you a disadvantage on overall pit time, or was it about the same regardless of whether or not you did the driver swap? And how was it adjusting to having to have different driving styles going into it? What was your car setup? Was it more balanced, or was it favoring one or the other driver?
Um, I don't know. It was just kind of the same car. Adam did have to sacrifice. We ran a steering ratio he didn't like. He usually runs 12 or 14. I like 10, a quicker one. So Adam had to kind of deal with that from my side. But at the end, it ended up helping me a lot. So Adam kept the car clean, and I was able to get in there and do the laps that I do.
Now, in terms of overall race tonight, I mean, you only finished 10 seconds back off of Brandon, and it strikes me as one of the more awkward races, difficult race. I feel like you guys might have compromised yourselves a little bit in terms of pit lane strategy, just through coming down during that safety car period. You had hit the minimum drive time number for the second driver. Was there a thought about undercutting the competition caution at any stage there?
Blake
Yes.
brought up, Blake
Yes.
brought up an idea of doing fuel only and trying to get the driver swap out of the way. I don't.
But
I
what
guess
happened?
I assumed more guys were going to swap, so I didn't really think the idea was going to work. You can explain your idea on it.
Well, I'm not talking about that. We were going to pit with Brandon and all of them and, start at the front of the field. But what happened, Adam?
Okay. Well, I thought okay. Yeah. I did a little bit of a practice pit entry right in warm up right before the race, and I did that on fresh tires. Well, on old tires, I actually drove it in just a little bit further, and it wasn't even close. So we missed pit entry, and thankfully they had a wreck and we had a caution, which really saved us because pits were going to be closed and we were going to have to come back around and pit because we didn't have the fuel to make it to the competition caution. So really, that caution saved us from my blunder. But definitely, I think the guys that didn't swap had a 16 or 20-second driver change advantage, and Blake got caught behind 3 or 4 guys that didn't do the swap, and I think that definitely hurt us coming down the stretch for him being able to battle with Brandon.
Still very solid outing for the both of you. As mentioned, the highest of the 2 driver teams to finish here tonight. You'd have to go all the way back to 9th place to find the next group of drivers that were swapping back and forth. So congratulations on that overall. We're going to start first with Adam and let you do some thank yous and some sponsors and shout outs.
Yeah, just got to thank Blake and everyone at FTF for the invite to do this. I normally don't run this series, but I appreciated Blake picking me as a teammate after I let him know I was available earlier today, and had a lot of fun.
Today? Earlier today?
Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
last minute
so
addition.
I'll explain that a little bit.
I
Brian
was going to say,
Mercurio-
you're a madman. You are an absolute madman.
Yeah, I know he picked it up fast, but Brian Mercurio, I shared the car with him with the owner stuff. He was supposed to be here, but he decided to go to an NFL game. I don't know the team, but he got tickets today and was like, "Hey, Blake, I know we had signed up 2 weeks ago, but I'm gonna go do this." And I'm like, "Oh my god!" So yeah, I put out a tweet and I was like, "Hey, does anyone want to drive with me?" And Adam was the first person that I thought was skilled enough to reply. So I said, "Sure, you're locked in."
Well, I know probably Scott will
Madman.
hate me, but if I was given the
Madman.
choice of going to a football game and driving Bathurst, I'd probably go with the football game as well.
Look, I've tested
I
the
don't
car.
blame Brian
I'd be
at
going
all.
to the football game as well.
Yeah, look, yeah, I understand. It's fine. But yeah.
But still, great performance there to finish it out, Blake. It looked like you were starting to close in. We thought maybe we might have a battle there at the end, but 89 just too far ahead. Still solid outing for you here tonight. I mean, I mentioned this back at the Indy Road Course. Your road course numbers in this series have been off the charts so far this year, so another solid outing. And now we'll let you do some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Yeah, sure thing. Speed Inc., Kyle Riley, Brian Mercurio, all the fantastic drivers that have shared the 62 this year. Adam is now on the list of that, and he will be on the list of drivers that won the owner's title, helped carry to the crown. I don't know if all the names get to go on that trophy or I don't know how that works, but yeah. FTF admin team as well. This is one of the better oval leagues in iRacing.
Say oval. How many road courses have we been to lately?
Yeah. But mainly, let's just say like 85% oval iRacing league. The rest of it, yeah. But yeah, Justin, Jake, Kyle, Cosman, Kevin, all the boys that make this tick. And then you guys for broadcasting. You guys have improved a lot this year, and it's cool to see you guys on Briar LaPrad's truck. And other than that, yeah.
Well, Adam Gilliland starts the race. Blake Reynolds completes the race, and the number 62 out of Speed Incorporated finishes P2 here tonight at Bathurst and continues to grow its lead there in the owner points as well. Congratulations, guys, on a great performance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's now go down to Victory Lane and see if we can talk with tonight's rather dominant race winner, second win of the season for Brandon Hawken. Hey, Brandon, Scott, Anthony, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Going good. Well, I'll tell you what. I think that maybe it was a good thing that 89 was unsponsored today because I think it made it more aerodynamic. As soon as you got out in that clean air, nobody seemed to be able to catch you. I mean, you made it look easy. We took a number of laps on board with your race car. We got to see what the downhill section looked like, courtesy of the nose cam and everything. But it couldn't have been easy out there, right? There had to be something you were dealing with.
Oh, definitely not. No. Yeah, man. Yeah, like Bathurst is probably one of the trickier tracks to drive. Like probably one of the trickier tracks to drive in the world. And yeah, it's like every lap you're looking, you're making sure you keep off the walls, and it's a super tricky track. So yeah, pretty much the entire race you're pretty much on your toes, and yeah, man. Blake was coming hard there at the end too, and so I had a lot to worry about there. Had a few scares as well. So yeah, it was just yeah, a lot to think about, and yeah, just a lot of fun.
So the way that these cars drive, these cars were not designed to race on a track like this, but you made it look flawless. But what were the cars feeling like the entire race? And because it seemed like you were driving and it seemed like it was perfectly fine, but obviously it couldn't have been that easy.
Oh yeah, definitely not. Yeah, these things definitely, yeah, they're not the greatest at turning right, and then yeah, a whole bunch of elevation change and uneven tarmac and everything. It's just yeah, it's a pretty big handful to drive. You're pretty much like in the corners, you're just like kind of just micromanaging the wheel, like especially coming in a turn. Yeah, coming out of turn two, especially like, yeah, if you have the wheel like a few degrees wrong, the back end would just come out. So it was a lot of throttle and steering management, and yeah, you had to make really small moves with the wheel, or the back end would come out. So yeah, it was pretty tricky.
I also like to add to that. Do you do Formula Drift in your spare time? Because that victory lap was amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do like to do a lot of drifting in my spare time. It's like, other than racing, yeah, drifting's a lot of fun too. So, yeah, I do that a lot, and yeah, it's not the easiest to do on iRacing, but once you get the tires worn in a bit with the stock cars, it's quite a bit of fun. So, yeah, it's a really fun to do.
Well, okay. I mean, that just stole away my celebration. But I was hoping that we got the drift show up and across the top of the mountain. Now that's obviously not easy, just because the elevation change. The car doesn't want to be consistent with the way that it's drifting around those corners. But then I was hoping that you'd take to the jump. You didn't do that. But Bathurst is one of those racetracks that's it's incredible to celebrate a victory here, just due to the difficult nature of the circuit the whole way around.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the jump. Yeah, that classic jump coming off the final straightaway. Yeah. Should have done that, but at least yeah, brought the car home clean. At least I'm not sure if I would have if I did the jump, but yeah, that's always a good time doing that, and yeah, there's a whole lot of just like fun places to celebrate here. You got the mountain that's like. Yeah, that's something you don't see like pretty much anywhere else, I don't think. So yeah, just a really interesting track, and a lot of fun, a lot of good areas to race and celebrate everything. It's a really great track.
Anthony touched on it, and Scott made the point immediately when we started the broadcast that these cars are not designed for this type of racetrack. And I don't think that there would be very many leagues and series out there that would run the Xfinity cars here at Bathurst. This is probably a bit of an anomaly out there in terms of track and car combination. So, how much time did you spend in terms of laps run, track preparation coming into this week's event?
Actually, my first lap was that they had an early practice session earlier in the evening. So yeah, I went up there and like I'm familiar with the track, so it didn't take too long. But I was kind of worried going in because I think my hot lap pace like I couldn't consistently like nail the like hot laps. So yeah, I was a bit worried about that, but luckily I was able to get one really good lap in for qualifying, got second, and the race pace was a lot more a little bit more relaxing, not relaxing at all, but definitely a little bit more. And yeah, it was just during the race it was quite a lot different because you had to manage the tires, and if you tried doing hot lap pace during the race, you like tires would just die. So yeah, you had to slow the pace down quite a bit, take it really easy going into the quarters, and yeah, most important part was just saving those rears because yeah, they blow up pretty quick.
Well, we talked just moments ago with the runner-up finisher Blake Reynolds and how good he's been at the road courses. You've definitely been good at the road course as well. Look at your last three performances: the win at Tsukuba, second place at the Indianapolis Road Course, and now another win here tonight at Bathurst. I mean, what a tear you've been on here at the left and right hand turning racetracks. Congratulations on the victory. We're now going to turn the mic over to you for some Victory Lane thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody at FTF for putting this thing on. Of course, just a lot of really fun card track combinations here. Yeah, yeah, probably, first time I've ever driven a stock car at Bathurst, so that's pretty neat. And yeah, we always have a lot of like really cool stuff to do here. So yeah, just like to thank them, you guys, and on the broadcast, you guys do a great job. And Blake, Logan, oh shoot. Um, oh my god, I'll shoot. I forgot the name. Sorry, I'm having a slight brain fart. But yeah, like everybody I raced with tonight, it was a really good time and really clean racing. Lap cars were great. They were really courteous, and everybody just I feel had a really good time. So yeah, I just like to thank everybody, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Absolutely. Brandon Hawken gets to celebrate here tonight as he wins the Motorsport Drop 2 hours at Bathurst here this evening. Dominating performance. Congratulations once again, Brandon.
Thanks, guys.
Well, 2 hours in the books. Brandon Hawken in Victory Lane. That's going to be concluding our coverage here tonight. Scott, I'm going to start with you because, coming into tonight's event, we knew that this was going to be a technical track. There's not a lot of room for error. Now, we did see drivers run into issues in some of the typical places. Murray's Corner was a big issue area early on. The chase eventually became a problem. Some drivers having an issue on the uphill going into the cutting. But when you consider the amount of cars that were still running at the end of this race, the amount of passing that we had all the way through the field inside of the top 10, at some points up inside the top 5, I mean, these drivers did a heck of a job taking to this track.
Yeah. Ultimately, I mean, remember way back to that restart where we were a double fight. I said, no way. There's no way we get through. The drivers actually showed a lot of respect and a lot of race management, and they did everything that they needed to do to get themselves to the finish line, and that cannot be understated. It requires self-sacrifice. It requires commitment. It requires getting yourself over the line, even though it's a difficult circuit to do that on. So look, I mean, the drivers had to commit to themselves. They had to push themselves at different points in the races, and they had to back the pace down at different points in the races. Ultimately, a really rewarding experience for a lot of the drivers, a difficult experience as well, but an all-round fun experience. And I hope to see Bathurst back on the schedule in the future.
Anthony, when we were talking there momentarily with Brandon Hawken, he said, he hopped into that early practice session that they had. That was pretty much his first experience there with the Xfinity car here at Bathurst. I'm sure there were probably a number of other drivers that would have fit that bill as well. I mean, what does that say to the adaptability of these guys?
It's amazing. Well, they know their race cars. They know how to handle them at tracks that they've been to before. So then they apply that knowledge to this track and adapt as much as they need to. This track, I guess the closest thing that they've been on so far this season would be Spa, given the fact that Al Rouge Raidillon is about the same as going up the hill at some of those parts, but certainly not the same track in sense of the way it drives. But as far as elevation changes go, that's about the closest one that they have gone to. It does. I mean, if you know your race car, then you can take that car and put it on any track that you can. I mean, we've seen it in the real life Cup Series. Most of the season has gone on without practices during the weekend, so they're basically hopping into their cars for the first time, really, when they go and do the race. So, but they know their cars enough that they know what their car is going to do at any given track. So it's fun to see these guys when they've honed in their skill that you can go to anywhere in the world that you want to with whatever car that you want to and still produce wins like this. It just shows the commitment that they've made to their certain discipline, and I think that Brandon Hawker was able to do that flawlessly tonight.
Yeah, I think I remember Scott pointing out that in terms of difficulty, he kind of made a comparison not only with Bathurst, but he said that the Nürburgring and also Belle Isle would be two other tracks that he would kind of put in the same category with this track. Well, I actually was just looking at the schedule. Belle Isle is on the schedule. It's our final road course stop of the season, and it is the sixth race of the playoffs later on this season. So that's going to be very interesting to see how the drivers take to that after the experience that they had to have here tonight at Mount Panorama. But next week, these drivers are going to be putting their playoff grid together as the final race of the regular season, as they'll be taking to the Lady in Black Darlington Raceway and then setting up who are going to be those championship competitors for the first playoff race at Daytona in about 3 weeks' time. But guys, appreciate you joining the booth here tonight. Not very familiar with its racetrack. I had to kind of go to school here this evening, but Scott, Anthony, it was a pleasure to have you in the booth here tonight with really a lot of fun with the three person commentary.
Yeah, it's something different, something that we don't get the opportunity to do very often either, as well. So, look, I mean, this track, you guys can very, very quickly tell that this place means a lot to me. It's ingrained into my car culture. I grew up on motocross bikes, so car culture, high speed culture was sort of part of my ethos, my upbringing, and to come here to a place like this and in the format that we did here tonight with cars of your upbringing, it's kind of that it's a really good cultural mishmash. It was difficult and I enjoyed it. Thank you.
It's always fun to go to a track outside the U.S. with cars that were built in the U.S. and made for U.S. Tracks, but it's always fun to go into somebody, especially Scott, you just touched on it perfectly, going into someone else's, this is their livelihood. I mean, this is what they know, and this is what they are most familiar with, and getting to hear it firsthand from someone who's been to the circuit before. And
I
someone,
haven't.
been
No,
to the circuit.
I haven't. I
thought
really,
you
really
had
want
been.
to go. I really want to go, but we haven't been able to.
What are you waiting for?
You're not that far away either. You could
No,
very easily
but
do it.
COVID, the last couple of
Oh
years since
yeah,
we've
that's
moved
true.
here, COVID's
That's true.
So,
Yeah, but still, hearing it firsthand from someone who knows the track or a series by heart and knows every detail about that track, because I didn't know that there were residences that were just on the straightaways. I
yeah,
didn't know that.
they were selling one of those houses very, very recently, actually.
And little things like that, like you learn while you're doing a broadcast, and it's incredible hearing the different aspects of what they have come up and growing up knowing. And it's always cool to be a part of a 3-person group because you always have that interesting dynamic between all three of them. And this was fun. This was a fantastic race. I love endurance racing. Now this was a bit short for an endurance race by my standards, but this was fantastic nonetheless. I love doing these time races.
Absolutely. It was a blast to be able to be a part of it here tonight, and we appreciate everybody that joined us here this evening for this very exciting event at Mount Panorama. Next time here for the FTF Grand National Series presented by Barr Visuals, we will be broadcasting the Motorsports Drop 250 at Darlington Raceway, final race of the regular season. That'll be next Saturday night, and the green flag scheduled to fly at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next time you'll see us here on FRN is going to be on Tuesday night, as we'll be bringing you a double feature. It's going to be the TNR Master Millwright Big Block Series at Fairbury, as they've just gotten their third season underway, and that'll be followed immediately by the G-Force Vintage Clothing 87 Series, as they'll be taking to the high banks of Talladega Super Speedway. But until then, for Scott Rankin, Anthony McCurry, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for joining us here tonight as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.